All right. Hello and welcome to round three of the National Open in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is the third round. We're going to be commentating for our favorite streamer, Joe Bruin, who apparently has already lost his game. Probably not actually the case. But we're getting set up here. The round should start in about 30 minutes. Joe so far is coming into this round with a 1-1 score. I believe he lost the first game and won the second, so far a pretty average event. And in this round, he's going to be facing a slightly lower rated opponent, I believe, in Drew Martin, a 1900 rated player, and Joe is going to have the white pieces. So this should be pretty interesting. It's only a 7-round tournament, so it's a pretty short tournament. We're already in round 3 now, and we're at a 1-1 score. So generally in these American Opens that don't have a lot of rounds, these 7-round events, you generally do have to make like a very, very big score to fight for some of the top places because the fields are so large. I don't know exactly how many players are in this one, but generally it's well into the hundreds. And so if you want any hope of competing for the top places or making any prizes, you generally need to be looking to make 6 points, maybe 5.5. Once in a while, 5 will get something. And so from this point on, every game is sort of like it's not quite a must win. I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but it's close. So we should see a pretty exciting game today. I think Joe is going to be obviously looking to win just in general with the white pieces against a comparatively rated player. But also, given the tournament situation, this is a game that you pretty much have to you look at as you pretty much have to be winning. So I expect Joe to choose his openings and such accordingly, try to get a big fight. But we'll find out soon. Should begin any minute now. We are speaking from the future, in a sense. The games have started about 15 minutes ago. But as is tradition now for any, serious event, all the broadcasts are delayed 15 minutes. So while we yammer on aimlessly, Joe is hard at work trying to navigate the opening. But we will see the fruits of his labor in probably about 60 seconds from now. Hopefully any minute. There's also a possibility the round started slightly late, which is also very common in these American events, so I don't know when we're actually going to get moves, but most likely soon. In the meantime, we're just kind of waiting. Just probably doing some last minute preparation on the computer there. Looking up the opponent. I don't know how much you're really going to find is one of the problems. Most of these events are not recorded. Is the other, I guess, sort of unusual artifact if you're not used to playing in the US. Very, very few games ever get broadcast or make it to any sort of database. This game will, because this is obviously being broadcast. But if Joe were not streaming, this game would almost certainly be lost to the void. And so most of his opponents are probably not going to have many, if any, games available to look up. It makes preparation very, very difficult. And this continues up to like a fairly high level. In the US, it's like not uncommon all the way up to like a 2200 FIDE level to have basically no games in the database. So if Joe is preparing with his final moments before the clock strikes 9:30 or 6:30, I guess it is over there, then I don't know if he's going to find much, but you have to try. It's obligatory to at least look. Alternatively, Joe could be uploading Stockfish to his Neuralink. That is possible. But if he is doing that, we all have to be very quiet about it. We can't admit that on camera. Yeah, while we wait, who's been here for the previous rounds? I've seen a little bits and pieces of some of the earlier games, but I was out today, so I didn't manage to catch much of the morning game. I saw Joe converted a pretty nice endgame, which I'm sure he was pretty happy about. but not much about how. I didn't see much of the earlier part of the game. So if anyone was here, enlighten me. How'd it go? It does look like we're gonna get moves any minute now. Joe has put away his computer. The upload is complete. Now doing the obligatory filling out of the score sheet, which suggests that we should be getting underway any minute now. Mostly because I expected Joe would have put away his computer only when he was told, "Sir, you have to put away your computer. We are starting the round." With some last-minute coordination. See, these are also the sorts of insights that you come to me for. You can see both players over here have actually turned around, not just Joe, which means they are listening to some sort of announcement. And if they are listening to some sort of announcement, that means that the round beginning is imminent. We are rooting for Eric Yuhan Lee. Well, you can root for Eric Lee. There's nothing wrong with that, but you also have to be rooting for Joe. That is a prerequisite to being in this stream. So you can say whoever you want to be rooting for. It can be anybody you want, but it is not allowed to be Drew Martin. That's the only person you're not allowed to be rooting for. Deal? All right, here we go. We are underway. I guess means the board's marginally desynced, but we should see Joe outstretch his hand any minute now and play what I guess looks to be e4. This is good. I don't know. I don't know much about Joe's repertoire specifically, so it's possible that e4 is just what he plays every game. That's probably also pretty likely if he's playing it. But this is also a good choice for the situation where Joe is in a world where he needs to win almost every game from here on out, if not literally every game from here on out. I expect he's not thinking that way, and he shouldn't. Like in the middle of a tournament, that's not you don't want to be thinking too hard about like how it's going to end. But there is always that back of your head that tells you like, okay, like we're here. I need to win every game. Let's at least keep things alive. And so e4, good way to do that. The opponent is not here though, which means this could be a very anticlimactic stream, like an extremely anticlimactic stream. How good is the tournament? What's up, Dan the Chess Man? We are 1-1 so far. Joe lost the first game, I believe, up and won the second game playing down, so a very normal event so far. We're now playing Drew Martin. I'm not 100% sure if this rating is listed is USDF or FIDE, so I'm not sure if we're playing slightly up or slightly down, but it's basically the same. So we have like a very even matchup for the third round, so this is going to sort of set the tone, I think, for the remainder of the event. Joe is, I think he's listed as 1887. I don't know why it's not on chess.com, but I also don't know if that's US or FIDE. That's like on website shows this is round 5, but this is their third game. Do you know the story? Yes. So Joe is playing in the under 2100 section, so everybody in this section has to have a maximum rating of 2099. And all of the under sections, there are many of them. There's under 2300, under 2100, all the way down to, I think, under like 1500, maybe even lower. Under 1300 maybe is where it stops. But in all of those only play 7 games. The open section of this tournament, which is the serious, like, this is the title norm, grandmasters are playing, that is a 9-round tournament. So that starts a day earlier than all of Joe's tournament has, and Tony's tournament has, which means that the open section has finished 2 games before Joe started his event. So the official round is always going to be 2 rounds ahead of Joe from here on out. Joe's final game is going to be Game 7, and for everybody else in the Open, it's going to be Game 9. All right, great news. The opponent has arrived, which is a really good sign because I was not going to sit here for an hour talking if all we're looking at is e4. Which means we should get an actual game beginning right about now. The handshake is done. And see a move on the board. I'm gonna jump ahead. We're gonna cheat with the magic of stuff. There we go. We got some movie magic in there. E5 is played, and Joe. I'm gonna jump ahead 5 more seconds. Joe has gone for bishop to c4. Very interesting. This is a very rare opening. Okay, maybe not very, maybe very rare is a little bit of an exaggeration, but this is... Wow. Joe goes for a gambit on move 3 of the game. Alright, this is going to be an exciting one. Or it's not. It's going to transpose back into a main line immediately. But let's jump in and look at this opening, because this is a really interesting start to the game. So Joe begins with e4. This is so far quite normal. The opponent goes for e5. So white has a wide variety of options here. Knight f3, of course, is by far the most common, just attacking the pawn. White can also, if he wants to try some sort of gambit, can play either the king's gambit with f4, can try like, you know, d4 and c3 is not great, but not totally ridiculous. Knight c3 has been somewhat popular recently by players that are trying to avoid the main lines with knight f3. And then there's this final option with bishop c4. It's called the bishop's opening for obvious reasons. We've moved out the bishop very, very early. It has some advantages compared to knight f3. We haven't committed the knight forward here yet, which means that this pawn is free to move forward. And by moving the bishop out early, we feel a little bit less bad if we move this pawn up 1 square to support this f4 advance. So for example, if black plays knight c6, playing a move like d3 is reasonable, with the idea that white's going to follow up, maybe not immediately with f4, but at some moment with f4. And so black typically plays knight f6 in this position to at least force the question of how white is going to defend this pawn. Generally, white has the option of playing d3 anyway, also defending his pawn and preparing f4, but having to contend with the idea of d5. Knight c3, of course, is also an option, but then we allow this sort of very classic pseudo-sacrifice from black, temporarily giving away a piece, and then forking the 2 pieces to recover it. And then there's what Joe played, which I have to admit I have never seen in my life. I have never seen knight to f3. I do not know anything about this move. This is interesting. So Joe is giving away the e4 pawn if black wants to take it. But if black does that, then black has spent most of his opening going forward with the same piece over and over again. And it's going to have to make even a third move once it gets attacked by d3 or queen e2, just something maybe even slower with castles and rook e1. And so the opponent instead opts to not go for any of this craziness and accept the pawn, and instead play the much simpler knight c6, where we get back into a normal opening that would typically be reached if we play knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and now knight f6, we would reach the same position. Let's go back and see what followed. It looks like from there, we have knights to c6, d3 was played. This is a typical response to knight f6, just keeping some of the tension in the center and not resolving things too early. The other options are d4, leads to some very, very crazy lines. This is a temporary, sometimes permanent sacrifice of a pawn. The idea being that white gains a lot of space in the center by doing so. There's some long theoretical lines there. Castles is possible. There's some long theoretical lines also involving a temporary sacrifice of a pawn. But the simplest is to play d3, not sacrifice a pawn at all, and just accept that black is not going to have serious problems in the opening, but all of the pieces are on the board, and you have good chances of creating a dynamic middle game. Bishop e7 was played, which is also kind of an interesting choice. Bishop c5, much more common. This would transpose back into the Italian lines after either c3 or castle first, and then probably c3 later, preparing d4. But the opponent goes for bishop e7, which is a much more solid but passive line. Knight to c3. Knight to c3, also a little interesting. Typically white would go for c3 and then d4, but knight c3 also a very respectable option. Castle, castle, d6, h3, preventing any annoying bishop g4 ideas. And here we have caught up to the game. The opponent has finally started to think. So yeah, a lot actually happened in the first few minutes of this game. It's not common for the first few moves of the game to be so interesting, but here we are. We actually have quite an interesting position developing. The opponent has gone for knight a5. This is aimed at simply taking Joe's light square bishop, trying to secure the advantage of the two bishops for black. The downside, this takes quite a lot of time, and is going to involve weakening black's position at least a little bit. Joe now has a choice, well, three choices really. One choice is to move the bishop forward to d5. It will get chased down eventually and have to be traded, but provoking the queenside pawns to move forward can introduce some weaknesses for black. Second option is to slide the bishop back to b3, intending to capture with the a pawn and opening up the a file. And then the third option is to just leave this bishop here and argue that when it's taken, white will be able to take back and have good pressure along the d file. So we'll see what Joe decides. Looks like Joe has made a decision. He's gone for bishop b3. Knight takes b3, a b3 is on the board. And now we have a position where it's very closed for now, which means the bishops are not quite as relevant as they would be otherwise. The knights are not a significant disadvantage in this position. And white has some pressure along the a file, so this pawn can become a weakness. But both sides are very, very solid here. Very, very solid. Very difficult to point out like any serious weaknesses in either side's camp. But both sides are playing very quickly, so there's a chance that this is still well within theory. I'm not super familiar with it. But we are seeing our opponent, Drew Martin, take at least a pause here. So while he does that... Okay, it looked like he was about to move. But yeah, he's taking a bit of a pause here. This makes sense. This is kind of the first position. If this is preparation, this is where your preparation often would end. Where, as black, you say, okay, like, I can play many different moves here. They're probably all fine. I could play c6, preparing d5. I could play c5 even, trying to just grab some space and prepare d5 later. I can develop my bishop to e6. I can play h6 to prevent any g5. Like, there's so many moves that I can play. And in response, there are so many moves for white. So I don't need to memorize like an exact sequence of moves here. I just need to understand like the general basic ideas of what it is that I want to do. And I'll just figure out precisely what order I want to do at the board. That's what he's doing now. This is not like some big unusual position where he's doing a lot of calculation. He's just kind of deciding what order he wants to play some of his normal moves in. Okay, I do see people saying that my stream is having issues. Unfortunately, I don't actually control the stream. Joe does. So there's not a lot I can do about that, sadly. I think probably he's misconfigured something. So if you're listening on my stream, just go to Joe's. I'll put the link in the chat. Just go here. It'll be easier. I'm not able to fix it, unfortunately. I'll yell at Joe later. He'll pay for this. I will never forget this. Okay, so the opponent does make a move, which we'll see in a second. He does go for c5. Very interesting. I think this is probably the move I least expected. Because it definitely looks visually a bit strange. You're giving yourself a backward d pawn, which can become very like a very serious weakness. you're not really accomplishing much with c5. You are preventing d4, which is nice. You do put a very big clamp on some of white's main breaks, but you do weaken this pawn. You weaken the d5 square, which is very, very relevant. This would be a beautiful square for white to try to put a piece. And you are making this bishop much less happy. It was already kind of unhappy because right now it's just looking, it's literally trapped itself. But you can imagine if black didn't play c5, go to the bigger board. If black played, for example, a move like c6, which would probably be my choice in this position without thinking too much, you can imagine that black will eventually prepare the move d5. If he does it right now, so if white plays something like slides the rook over, for example, and then sorry, I'm on the wrong board. If black plays c6, then we play rook e1. For example, we can't play d5 now because white will just take this pawn and be very happy with his extra pawn. But black can preemptively defend this pawn with, you know, something like queen c7. And after white plays a move, say, I don't know, bishop e3, now d5 is possible. And now this bishop has scope. It can go to b4, it can go to maybe in some lines c5 as this bishop moves away, which it kind of has to because there is a serious threat. There's also another way black can do this. If black plays, for example, bishop e6 here, not playing so much for d5, bishop e3, queen d7, this opens a pathway for the bishop to get back into the game. So when c5 is played, now this bishop is never going to c5. This bishop can still go this way, but if it goes to b6, it's not really doing much. It's just staring at a pawn again. So this c5 move is sort of committing this bishop to a life of misery. And so black is saying that, first of all, doesn't matter. Like, fine, so I have one bad piece in the position. I'm allowed to have one bad piece in the position. And second of all, I'm confident that I can trade this piece off eventually. Maybe by moving this knight out of the way and trying to trade it on the king side is an option. Potentially allowing a knight to come to d5 and then trying to force it to take on e7 is an option. There's like some justifications for it, but it is a very, very, very double-edged choice, and it indicates to me that black is playing for a win as well, which in a way is a good sign. We do want our opponent to be ambitious and try to punish it. Cruiser needs 1800 so he can clearly play. Do you get the sense he is deliberately playing chaos chess just to put Joe out of any prep? I think in general, that is one explanation for when players make kind of odd-appearing moves. But in this case, I would say that black hasn't done anything super unusual. First of all, black was the one surprised in the opening. If we go back to move 3, black was certainly not expecting knight to f3. That's just... If anybody expects knight to f3 in this position, there's something fundamentally wrong with them. So he was already surprised on move 3, and so I think more likely what happened is he said, okay, like, I don't know what this knight f3 nonsense is. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. It's probably bad, because if it was good, people would play it, and I've never seen anybody play it. So it's probably bad, but I don't know how to punish it. What I do know is that this position is fine for black. Maybe I even play this for black. I don't know if Drew Martin plays the two knights defense as black, but like maybe this is just his main opening repertoire anyway. And so he sees an opportunity just to like get back into a position that he knows, even if it's not the best choice. And that's just kind of like good enough for him. Like he's not trying to be more ambitious than that. And then further on in the game, like c5 is just, it's a double-edged move. It's not good, it's not bad. It's a move. And I don't think this is like this is also not a position that our opponent is going to be expecting Joe to still be in prep in. Like both players are kind of aware that they're just like kind of in a position right now. And so c5 is much more just a generic attempt at making a double-edged position, I think, than something specific to prep. But I could be wrong. Their opening knowledge could be quite deep here. And there's always a possibility even this is still in theory. I would be surprised, but it's possible. So Joe has played the move knight to d2. I was about to talk about this. I like this move a lot. This is a very, very strong move. And I think this is a really good sign that he found it. I don't know if I would have done it immediately, but the idea is very, very good. And the point of this knight to d2 move, because it looks very strange. We're undeveloping a knight, we're going backwards, we're blocking in our own bishop. Like, why did we... It looks like a beginner has just made a random move. But in this case, it has a very, very clear purpose, and a very, very strong purpose, which is that white is aiming for this d5 square that we talked about earlier. Since black has played c5, if a knight gets here, uncontested, it will be there forever. Black can never play c6 to kick it away, black can never play e6 to kick it away. And so white's biggest priority in the position is managing to take control of this square. This knight moving here, you might reasonably ask the question, okay, like, what does this knight have to do with the d5 square? But this knight is it's taking step one of a long journey. What white's going to do is he's going to take this knight, he's going to keep moving it. It's going to go up to c4, back to e3, and then finally to d5, where it will join its compatriot and try to take control of this square permanently. If white manages that, white will be much better. There is a secondary purpose to this move as well, a second benefit, which is that now this pawn is out of the way, or rather, it's out of the way of the pawn, which allows Joe to start considering moves like f4, which is eventually going to be a very, very critical part of his strategy, trying to open up the king side once he's taken control of this square. So this is a really good move. I'm pretty happy with it. The only reason that I might be a little less happy with it is that since white has done this immediately, black has an opportunity to try to interfere with this plan by playing d5 himself, trying to get rid of this really, really weak pawn before white has the opportunity to clamp down on this square. It might be fine. I mean, it's certainly not like black's better after this, but it is not ideal to allow black to sort of get rid of his one weakness in the position. The other move that I would consider, and maybe play, I would have to decide, is first by developing this bishop out to g5, with the intention of exchanging this bishop for the knight, and then starting this procedure of bringing the knight all the way to d5 on this very, very long journey. This might also sound weird because, why are we trading bishops for knights? Generally something that we don't recommend in chess. The bishop is a slightly better piece than the knight. But in this case, the knight is a very critical defender of this square, and liquidating it is therefore a pretty high priority. You can imagine if we end up in a position, for example, bishop e6, and we make this exchange, now knight to d2, beginning this journey. Say black does some normal moves, like reroutes the bishop, to start preparing f5, play something like, I don't know, h6. Now, if what black takes for some reason, now we have a situation where white has a very, very powerful knight here that will forever be uncontested, not only by a pawn, but there's also no other piece of black's that can actually contest it. This bishop that we talked about being so sad earlier is even more sad. It's looking at a wall of pawns for the rest of the game, and will never be able to match the strength of this bishop. On the other hand, bishop g5 does have its own downsides as well. Giving away 2 bishops for 2 knights is quite a significant decision. So I assume those were the 2 moves that Joe was considering. He goes ahead and plays knight d2 immediately, which I think is quite reasonable, and it looks like the opponent has taken the opportunity to play d5 and avoid the clamp down that could occur. Is knight d5 a possible move, or double pawns horrible? So if white goes knight d5 immediately, and this may also help explain why knight d2 is a good move. Now after takes, it's not so much that the double pawns are horrible per se, by themselves. I mean, they're not great, but by themselves, they're not that big of an issue. The issue is more what they've given up, I guess. Like, this pawn is actually quite safe. Black is not going to go ahead and take this pawn because it's a weak pawn, or even this pawn because it's a weak pawn, or this pawn because it's a weak pawn, or this pawn because it's a weak pawn. But since all these pawns have shifted over to the queen side, now the king side protection is very, very low. all of this pawn shelter is on the left half of the board. And so black can very comfortably start a very, very vicious pawn storm with something like f5, something like g5, something like h5. All of these pawns are coming. This king is starting to feel very, very uncomfortable, while white has very, very little counterplay. So that's why it's so important that we get a piece to d5 uncontested. Like, if black is able to contest it, it's much less impressive. That's why we want to either play bishop g5 to try and reduce the defenders of the square for black, or knight to d2 to try and increase our attackers on d5 for black. And generally, you would see both. Both would be played eventually. Like, after knight d2, if black had instead played a move like, let's say, b6, knight to c4, I don't know, some random move like bishop e6, Joe probably would have played bishop g5 here. So it's something that he knows he wants to do both of. You just have to figure out which order is better. But anyway, Joe does go for knight to d2. d5 is played, and now Joe is beginning to take his first very, very significant think of the game. Black is liquidating his big weakness. If the d5 pawn is gone, or well, what's now a d5 pawn, if the d6 pawn is gone, black is going to be quite happy. And also black is taking away this very, very powerful square for white. So Joe needs now to figure out, does he want to take on d5 and allow the opening of the position at least a little bit? And if he does he then want to take again on d5 or keep these knights on at least? Or does he want to try and keep things a little bit more closed and try some kind of different move? I'm honestly not sure what else he would do. Bring the knight back to f3, just coming back, saying like, okay, I moved here, I provoked this move, like coming back. Now I'm attacking your undefended pawn. Reasonable. This might be what Joe's considering. Something like rook e1, trying to, with sort of the same idea. Interesting. Also, something Joe might be considering. So a lot of choices for white here, and this decision I think will probably define the rest of the game. I'm not going to say decide the rest of the game, that's way too far, but it will define the character of the game, whether we're going to see like an open tactical struggle, whether we're going to see some kind of like King's Indian-esque approach from the black side, or from the white side rather. Like if we provoke black into pushing the pawn forward even more, and then sliding back, playing for f4, it looks like the black side of a King's Indian. Or if black goes ahead and takes on e4, either now or at some stage, if we see these sorts of like almost Pirc type position, maybe Philidor type positions from the white side, where black has a good control of the center, but these pawns can become very weak, and white will slowly maneuver to try to attack them. But the first third order business, I think, is to force black to do something. Because if white just sits on the position, black is going to very comfortably complete development, bring the bishop out, bring the queen out, just keep this pawn here as long as possible, and have a very, very comfortable position. So white really needs to use this moment to force some clarification of the position, which makes me very much lean towards knight f3. There's really no good way to defend this pawn that doesn't involve like something committal. Black pretty much has to play either d4 here in order to just gain time kicking away the knight and then defend this pawn with the queen or with the bishop or even with the knight. Or needs to take first and then do the same thing. Otherwise, defending this pawn is very difficult. We can't do it with the queen immediately because the queen is needed for the defense of this pawn. We can't do it with the bishop because the bishop would interfere with the defense of this pawn. And there are sometimes options where black can sacrifice this pawn, but here it looks a little optimistic. Is f4 overeager? So f4 has a similar problem, I guess, to playing knight d5 and allowing the double pawns, which is that we are now opening the position on the king side very significantly, which is the side where, first of all, we have no pieces. All of our pieces are on the left side right now. And it's also the side where our king is. So we, if black starts opening things up, it can start to get very, very scary. So for example, if takes here, probably we have to take back. There's worlds where maybe we can get away with e5 or e takes d5, but for the sake of argument, let's say we take back. Bishop to d6, rook comes back somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where. And now even something like dropping the bishop all the way back in preparation of putting the queen in front and making this very, very powerful battery starts to get really dangerous for white. The king is not feeling safe here at all. There's probably more accurate things to do as well, like maybe d4 first is more accurate. Bishop e6 is also reasonable. But this is something that I think I would certainly avoid as white. It looks very scary, even if it doesn't necessarily resolve to much. And more importantly, it's not a position where white has a lot of prospects to win the game, I would say. It's very clear that black is the one on the front foot. But f4 will eventually be the thing that white plays for. It is a very powerful idea that white does want to break with f4. It's kind of the only break that he has left. So at some stage, f4 will happen. It just can't be immediately, I think. What opening was this? This was an this was an odd opening. We saw e4, e5, bishop c4, bishop, so already rare. Knight to f6, and now knight to f3. Extremely rare. I don't know anything here. I don't know if this is like a legitimate gambit or not. But the opponent trusted Joe and decided to transpose back into the two knights. And then after some somewhat standard two knights style play, we reached this position. The knight went to c3 instead of the pawn, which is a big difference from typical positions, but is very, very playable. And here the opponent played knight to a5, grabbing the two bishops and making this, sort of defining the character of this game as whether it's going to be a closed game where the knights dominate or an open game where the bishops dominate, and both sides are going to be like very focused on that. Bishops were taken. Knight to d2 was played, aiming for this very, very long maneuver, trying to get to this d5 square. The opponent took the opportunity to break in the center, and Joe has responded now. We have queen to e2, which is another way of trying to force the situation in the center. This is indirectly attacking this pawn. Indirectly meaning that white is threatening to take on d5, and then after black capture this pawn, for example, after bishop e6, which would otherwise be a very normal-looking move. Now after takes, white is able to grab this pawn. Line doesn't end there. This isn't even necessarily that good for white, but that is the general idea of this queen e2 move. And so Joe is hoping to provoke the move to d4, or takes, either one. I think Joe would be happy with either. If black were to play d4 here, Joe would move his knight probably to d1. I'm not 100% sure where he's intending, but most likely to d1. And then the idea of f4, Falcomi's idea of f4 becomes the main thing that white is going to be playing for. A very, very powerful idea, trying to break open the king side. One important note here is that if this is the structure we get, white is actually very happy that he's the one with the two knights. The light square bishop would have been a terrible, terrible piece, and Joe would have been looking for any opportunity to get rid of it for a knight, if he ever had the opportunity, which he probably wouldn't be given. So if he ends up going into this structure having already traded the light square bishop for a knight, that's a considerable victory. Maybe not enough for an advantage, but a considerable victory. What's up, Coma? Yeah, I'm back. I returned. Unfortunately, not on my own stream. Apparently, something went wrong with the multi-stream. So, unlucky, but such is life. But I'm here. I'm pretending I still play this game at least a little bit. Every 6 months I pop back in. And I'll probably be back a little bit this summer to my actual stream. I know I say that often, but I think this time I need to actually do it. So we have queen e2. Black is thinking this is also a very reasonable move to take a big think. I think the next couple of moves, like the next 2 to 3 moves, are going to be very, very important for both sides. Because here is where black already has to take one major decision. Do we push this pawn forward and enter this reverse King's Indian structure? My guess is the opponent doesn't want to do that. And he's looking for ways to avoid it. I say this not knowing anything about the opponent, but players of this strength typically don't like those types of positions. Really for either side, to be honest. But they don't really think of it from the other side. They think of like their own game. This is a big difference, I think, between players of this level and players of like master level, let's say, is players of this level generally look at their position and say like, what do I want from my position? How am I achieving my goal? And much less, how does the opponent feel about their position or their goals achievable? But as I say that, I am wrong. Drew Martin does go ahead and push the pawn forward to d4, and we have our reverse King's Indian defense structure. I will say he did not look happy when he was making this move. So the body language to me looked like, oh man, I guess I'm forced to play d4. Hopefully it won't be too bad. Can you make them give me Fable back? You overestimate my power. I can do many things, but sometimes the crystal ball, even the crystal ball has its limits. Amateurs love pushing pawns. In a way, that's true. But one of the things that I notice about players of this level, around like the 1900, 2000 level, is they really, really don't like long-term strategic weaknesses. Even if those weaknesses are not relevant. Like, they really don't like having double pawns. They really don't like having backward pawns. They really don't like having 2 bishops in a closed position. And that's very understandable. Like, they shouldn't. That is like a correct reaction. Like, I also don't like having negative aspects to my position. I don't like having double pawns. I don't like having backward pawns. I don't like having pieces stuck behind pawn structures or whatever. Those are good instincts. But a lot of them haven't, like, when you're starting out, you don't really care about those kinds of things. Like, when you're 14, 1500, you say, oh, double pawns, like, whatever, I have 2 pawns, who cares where they are? And then, as you start to learn that they're weaknesses, you kind of overcorrect a bit. And around, like, this level, you tend to look at that sort of thing and say, like, oh, it's a death sentence. Like, my attack's never going to work, I'm just going to end up in a worse endgame because I have double pawns. Like, it's so bad. And then as you get like a little bit stronger, you start to realize, okay, sure, I have double pawns, but there's a reason I have double pawns. Like, I have double pawns because, in this position, I have 2 bishops. Or, well, okay, I guess the other way. Because I have 2 knights in a closed position. Like, Joe is not afraid of his double pawns here. They're quite solid. In fact, Joe might actually be very happy that this pawn's here. Like, if Joe could pick up this pawn and put it on a2 now while his opponent's not looking, I don't think he would do it. I think you'd actually rather have the pawn here, because the pawn here restricts black's queenside play quite substantially. So even if very, very long term, yes, sure. If this game goes 100 moves, this pawn is going to be, like, Joe is going to regret the fact that this pawn is here. But the game's probably not going to go 100 moves. The game's probably going to go like 30 moves. And at no point in those 30 moves is anything over here going to matter. Most likely. Maybe it was a psychological trick. That is possible, technically, but I would be impressed if that even remotely occurred to the opponent here. What is Joe's rating? Joe, this is a very even matchup. Both players are about 1900. I don't know if that's US or FIDE rating, though. So take that with some grain of salt. Or they're both listed as 1900. I don't know what that means. How come I'm not playing? I had some scheduling conflict later in the week. So it just wasn't at a good time, unfortunately. But I've been playing a little bit again, me personally. I played I played a couple tournaments in Europe recently. Almost got back to 2400, so I'm almost I can almost look myself in the mirror again, which is good. But unfortunately, I ended at 2397, which means I need to play one more tournament before I can officially ride off into the sunset. So you're not rid of me just yet. It's a consequence of rule following at this level. Yeah, a little bit. I think. I mean, a lot of it is justified as well. Like there's some aspect to it that's just like, oh, I heard like such and such is bad, like a bad positional factor. I'm going to avoid it forever. But part of it is also like if you imagine a balanced position where you have double pawns, but you have like an attack for it, for example, which is very common in like a Sicilian, for example. Like I guess a very, very good example would be any kind of Sicilian position, maybe a Sicilian dragon position, where you allow black to play bishop takes c3 and double your pawns on c2 and c3, but you get two bishops. It's very easy to imagine a balanced position where those two factors cancel each other out, it's equal, but white needs to make his attack work. And at this level, you're probably not going to make the attack work. That's just how it is. You have to be a very, very strong player to make those sorts of things work. And so most of the time that you have that situation, you are actually just going to be like pretty sad. And so I understand why people avoid it. In the meantime, Joe goes for knight to b5. Which is a move. That is one of the squares that the knight could go to. I'm trying to see the idea. I don't yet. I think what Joe is trying to do is reroute this knight to c4 and try to put pressure on this pawn. But this knight was already going there, so I don't think it was super necessary. I don't know. We'll see the idea. I definitely think that. Well, I think that's just going to run into it. Like I understand the idea. It's a good idea in principle. It's also a very typical idea on the black side of a King's Indian, where you try to take advantage of this square. You try to get a knight here. You try to secure a knight there. If you can secure a knight there, we have sort of a very similar situation to what we were talking about with the knight on d5. If you can make a permanent knight here, it's a very, very powerful outpost. However, the knight is not going to permanently be here. It was different in this position where we were saying if a knight gets here, it's great because the knight can never be attacked by c6. It can never be attacked by e6. These pawns have already pushed past it. In this case, now that we're a couple moves forward, if we try to do the same thing when we put a knight here, yes, this pawn has pushed past it, but this pawn is not. And so the knight will eventually get kicked out by this pawn. And then from here, it's not going to have really any squares to go to. So yes, it would be nice to get a knight here, but we shouldn't put too high a priority on it because it is a very temporary solution for the knight. It is going to have to eventually reroute itself anyway. So what Joe is banking on is that, yes, the knight on c4 is only going to be temporarily there. It will get kicked away. But for the moment that it's there, maybe it can make something useful happen. And so I think the line that Joe is specifically enthralled with is, first of all, we're attacking this pawn, sort of. It's not, we can't take the pawn, really, but we're at least pretending that we are. And so Joe is probably focused on this move a6. Also, like, not attacking the knight, but, like, kind of attacking the knight. Knight to a3. And now he's focused on the idea that b5 is not possible because we can exploit this pin on the a file. And Joe is saying, okay, if black can't play b5 now, then I get the chance to play knight c4 for one move. And if I get the chance to play knight c4 for one move, then I can distract you with this pawn long enough that you never actually get the opportunity to kick my knight out. You don't have the time. This is a really optimistic way of thinking. I don't think I think there's a lot of problems with this idea, but that is the idea, I believe. One big problem with the idea, yeah, what Normal said, is that since this pawn is not really under attack, if white goes and tries to take this pawn, the pieces, whichever piece he takes with, is going to end up getting stranded here. Black has the opportunity to play like really any move, but bishop d7 is a significant one, attacking the knight in a different way. And now if it slides back, trying to go to c4, now black does have the time to play this b5 move without any problems with the pin on the a file. And so after bishop d7, if white does go ahead and gets very, very greedy and grabs this pawn here, now after something as simple as queen b6, not even necessary, this knight would never go anywhere. But after something simple, well, I guess queen d8 maybe is more convincing. Now this knight is just going to be lost. So knight b5, I think unfortunately this is a pretty severe inaccuracy. And this is going to be like a really big problem for Joe to recover from. But it's not fatal. It doesn't really change the position that much, I guess. I definitely would have preferred this knight to just be on like any square. Probably d1, but like any square. Like b1 I think is even better. But knight b5 was a choice, and now Drew Martin has to come up with a reply. If he plays a6, I think we should be quite happy. And a6, I would say, is like the snap, like natural reaction to this knight b5 move, so it is possible that we see it. But if he plays literally anything other than a6, then I'm a little bit concerned. Love from Norway, keep it up. That's quite a ways away. Good to see you, Nick. Thank you for stopping in and supporting Joe. What's up, No Love Without Earth? Hope you're both doing good. We are watching round 3 of the 2026 National Open in support of Joe Brun, who is coming into this round with a 1-1 score, 50%. Solid tournament so far, and looking to make it positive with the white pieces in round 3 against a very similarly rated opponent, Drew Martin. We saw a very strange opening to get to this point that transposed into a normal opening and then back into a strange opening. And now here we are. We've reached a very strategically imbalanced position. White is effectively playing the King's Indian defense from the white side and with only one bishop. But many pieces are still on the board, which is a good sign. Nothing has been resolved, which is a good sign. This is going to be a long, long fight, which I think is a good thing. We're going to have a lot to talk about. But I also wouldn't be surprised if we see a quite significant amount of time spent here. The longer black thinks, I think the happier I am. Because bishop d7, it's a type of move, like, if you see it, you just play it. There isn't really anything to think about, you just do it. Like, there's no downside. So, if he's gonna be thinking this long, that's, like, the longer he thinks, the more likely it is that he plays something else. And, well, okay, unlucky. Our opponent's, the opponent does find bishop to d7. I'm curious to see Joe's reaction here. And it comes back to a3, so it looks like he actually did expect this move. I wonder if knight b5, like, when Joe played knight b5, if he knew bishop d7 was coming, or if he played knight b5 and then his opponent started thinking, and he was like, oh shit, like, my opponent's not immediately playing a6. I done goofed. Not sure which happened, but in any case, bishop d7 is played, knight a3 is on the board. And now, now I think white is probably a little bit worse. And by a little bit, I might mean significantly. I'm not entirely sure yet. I don't like white's queenside, but yeah, I mean, I think it's unquestionable that black is better here. Black definitely has some kind of significant advantage. I don't know how big, but I don't know if we're talking about, like, you know, a 0.4 kind of advantage or like a minus like 1 kind of advantage. It's probably not more than that. But I would absolutely prefer to be black. What's my stream called? My stream is it's under my name. I'm Sack Jack Checkmate. I occasionally stream when I need to provide, like, you know, back in medieval times you would have like the court jester. Like, that's me. That's what I'm here for. I'm the comic relief of the Twitch community. Alright, so Joe decides to try to break in the center with the move c3. Trying to put some pressure on this otherwise very, very impregnable pawn triangle. On the other hand, it doesn't really put any pressure on this pawn triangle. Black is not really obligated to do anything about it. Black can just play a normal move, like, for example, rook to b8, I think would come to mind as a way of just over-defending this pawn and freeing up this bishop to move somewhere else. Something like knight e8 would come to mind, trying to go to d6 and move the knight to a more useful square. But what Joe is hoping for is that black panics and takes this pawn, which would allow white to undouble his pawns to sort of correct his pawn structure a little bit, while also starting to put together ideas of getting back to this d5 square. Now with another long maneuver, for example, one of these knights going all the way around. Even this position, I think I would prefer to be black, but this would relieve some of the pressure. So that's probably what Joe is hoping for with this c3 move. USA 3-1 Paraguay. Nice. Yeah, unfortunately, I agreed to commentate this round, which is the relevant conflict, so I don't get to see much of it. But that's okay. I'm one of those, like, American sports fans that watches like 5 games of every sport a year when it's like right at the finals. No, it's not a spoiler for me, don't worry. I don't know about Chad, but for me it's definitely not a spoiler. I would love to see the score. USA. The other thing I don't know, like, I have no, like, I don't follow football enough to know, like, who's favored, even, in, like, the US-Paraguay. I assume the US, because, I don't know, US is a pretty big country, you'd think you can find some football players. But I know we're not, like, I mean, we're not Germany, we're not Argentina. But if we're winning, that also gives me even more evidence to suggest that the US is favored, so I think I might be a genius. Drew Martin might also think he's a genius. I think at this point both players understand that black is better. And black is now trying to figure out how to make progress, really. Because structurally speaking, black has a very nice structure. He has 2 bishops. He has full control of the center. But black eventually does need to, like, do something. The game doesn't win itself. So there are a few options. Like, black is going to need to break open the position more specifically, and the few options to do that are to try to prepare this move c4. Very, very difficult, because white has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces defending c4. Not going to be easy. Moving this knight out of the way and trying to play f5 is also a very big idea. That's what I expect black to go for. That's kind of what I was talking about with this knight e8 move. Trying to go knight e8, knight d6, and then once the knight has reached this square, then black can start thinking about moves like f5. Another move black could play is trying to get this knight to this square, which would be a very powerful square for the knight, and trying to go knight h5. Obviously, black can't do it right now because the queen would take it off the board. So to prepare it, black might play this move g6. I think that's very natural. It prepares moving this knight here and also prepares this advance indirectly. So I would expect that move. I don't know if it's the best move, but I think it's probably the most practical move here. If I were black, that's probably what I would play. One big question is whether it weakens the dark squares on the king side a little bit, like maybe this knight gets moved out of the way, and then this bishop gets to slide in. I wouldn't be that concerned about that as black, but another way black could play it is say, I'm going to do that idea, I'm going to play g6, but I'm not in any rush to do it. Maybe first I play a move like h6, king h7, then g6, just really slowly advance on the king side and make sure everything is protected before we start this operation. Because in the meantime, white is not making any real big moves of their own. Black sort of has the time to just kind of do whatever they want. I guess one aspect of c3 that we haven't talked about yet is this does open a way for the knight to get back into the game, kind of, for knight c2. This might... Maybe this is more what Joe is interested in than trying to contest the center. That makes more sense now that I say it. So white does have, like, an idea in the position. Black can't take forever. White would like to move this knight to c2, and then try to liquidate some of the doubled pawn issue by playing b4. So for example, if we do go for something like h6, knight c2, king h7, now after b4, white is making it messy, at least. I don't know if I would say that white is making progress, but white is definitely doing something. Some chess moves are being made. And when you're worse, you don't usually care that much if your moves are good. You care more about your moves being chess moves. And these are definitely chess moves. I can confirm. Any good chess books back there? I actually don't have a lot of physical chess books. I have a few, but they're mostly like the classic ones, like Dvoretsky and Volokitin. I don't really like opening books in physical form because I'd rather just have a digital thing that I can look at alongside ChessBase. And I kind of struggle to focus on like tactics books or stuff like that in physical form. So the few chess books that I do have are either these classics like this Dvoretsky, Volokitin, or like biographies, like chess history books. Those I enjoy more. Like the Carlsen biography from when he was like 13, I think was a very, very fun read. I don't have that with me right now, but that was a very good physical book. I think it's called Wonder Kid, Wonder Boy, something like that. It did look like we were about to see a move. This is like a very funny classical experience, where your opponent reaches out, you know they're going to play a move, and then they yawn. And then they don't play a move. And then they start thinking again. And you know it's going to be a while. It is relevant also. This is the second game of the day for these guys. They are tired from the first game. Very tired, apparently, looking at the opponents. So you will see, you will just see sloppier games in the second game. That just is inevitable. And so that's also why I'm a little bit less concerned that we're probably objectively quite a bit worse here. Like, yes, I would much rather be black. Objectively, this might be terrible. It might even be like, I actually wouldn't be shocked if like you turn on an engine if it says black is just winning here. It might say it's just like -2. I wouldn't go that far, but a computer might. But in practice, these types of positions, what the computer says doesn't really matter. Black needs to be like pretty precise to demonstrate that, and especially at slightly lower levels, and especially at the second game of the day, I don't expect particularly high precision. Though I will say so far the opponent has played very well. I think he might just have like 100% accuracy right now. So not a good sign. USA should top the group but struggle after that. Okay, that's what I guessed. I feel like we're probably one of these teams that, like, we're the gatekeeper. Like, if you can beat the US, you're a good team. If you can't beat the US, you're probably not a very good team. But we're not, like, a great team. Like, maybe once in a blue moon we're beating, like we're like a 2200 rated soccer team. That would be my guess. Yeah, Joe's position is definitely cramped, which is not that big of a problem in these King's Indian type positions a lot of the time, but here I don't love it. If we didn't send our knight to Narnia on the queen side, it might be more okay, but we've lost a lot of time doing that, and not only have we lost a lot of time, like, the way that Black has restricted our knight are moves that he wanted to play anyway for different reasons. Like, Black would want exactly this kind of thing, exactly these kinds of moves in order to start the typical queenside play against, like, the King's Indian structure. So it's not like we've provoked anything by doing this. Black has kind of done what they want to anyway, which makes me pretty nervous for the white side of the position. But on the other hand, I don't see how Black just, like, wins. I don't think there's going to be a way that Black just, like, wins. And White is not, like, completely without ideas. White does still get to move his pieces. A little bit. Maybe not much, but at least a little bit. I think a big thing that Black should try to organize in an ideal world is trying to get this bishop onto this diagonal, and because that would keep pressure on this pawn, which in turn keeps this knight stuck here forever, because there's no other good way to defend this pawn, which in turn keeps this bishop stuck here forever, which in turn keeps this rook stuck here forever. So if Black could play, like, bishop e6 here, White would be, like, totally frozen for a very long time. Black can't do it immediately because the bishop is needed for the defense of the pawn, which very strongly suggests to me that, you know, you probably should just play, like, something like rook b8, over-defend this pawn, prepare bishop e6, get the bishop to this diagonal. That's one approach. Second approach, say the bishop is fine where it is. Sure, White can move, but I don't care. Like, it's not like his moves that White can make are particularly impressive. I'm just going to do my thing on the king side. Third option, do nothing. Just sit. Put the onus on White to, like, show that he can actually make any progress. Uncontested, I guess. Like, if Black just shuffles, like, slowly improves the position, bishop d6, queen e7, rook e8, whatever, and just says, okay, fine, you can play your knight c2, you can play your b4, like, happy birthday. Not clear how White deals with this. And I say deals with this in a vague sense because you're not really dealing with anything. There's no big, like, problem that you have. But at the same time, if you can't do anything while your opponent is slowly improving their position, you will eventually have something to deal with. It's just going to be a little bit down the line. So you have to take some measures before that. But the opponent is very, very deep in thought here. This is quite a long time to be thinking, actually. I think we're up to... What are we up to? This is already... Okay, it doesn't say, but this is over 10 minutes, I want to say? Which is quite a lot in a position like this where, like, any move is fine. You can play a5, I would be happy. You can play rook b8, I would be happy. You can play g6, I would be happy. Like, really, I don't think Black can do anything wrong. So when Black eventually makes a move, it's not going to be like, oh yes, or oh no. They're all the same. We're just going to hope... I think at this point we're mostly hoping that he just loses a lot of time deciding between moves. Okay, we do see a move on the board. I think. Did we see a move? We did see a move. The move is rook to e8. Okay, I mean, I know I said, like, whatever black plays, it's not going to be like, hooray, they played a bad move. But rook e8, I think white is probably relatively happy to see. I wouldn't say, like, ecstatic. It's not like this spoils anything. But black playing rook e8 means two things. First of all, the knight can't go here, which is pretty relevant because that is where the knight would have liked to go, or one of the places the knight might have liked to go, at least. And secondly, moving the rook away from the f-file means that black is not... apparently is not thinking about playing f5 at any point of the game, which is good, because that is one of the main ways that black would crash through. Those are the downsides of rook e8. The upsides are not... I don't know. I'm not sure what this is aimed at. I think there is... It's possible that black is trying to bring the bishop back to f8 to get it out of the way. But I don't know what that accomplishes, really. So I think rook e8, I would read this as like a move. This is kind of the third option I was saying, of do nothing. I think black didn't find like any way to make progress himself, so he's going to argue white is not going to make progress if I just slowly make some moves. I say slowly make some moves instead of slowly improve my position because I don't think rook e8 really improves the position, but it doesn't hurt it either. It's just, it's kind of a nothing move. And that's good in a sense, but it also is giving Joe like some rope. You know, it's very easy to play something bad as white in this position. But Joe goes for knight c2, which seems kind of automatic. And now the opponent goes for bishop e6. So this, I guess, was the point of rook e8. Like, black was saying, I want to put the bishop on e6. If you play knight c2, I can play bishop e6. So I'm just going to wait. I'm going to make a random waiting move. I don't care if it's bad. I'm just going to wait until you play knight c2, and then I'm going to slide my bishop over here. And, I mean, his plan succeeded. He did make a nothing waiting move. Joe played knight c2, and now bishop e6 is played. Now Joe has to make a decision. Up until this point, his last couple moves have been pretty automatic. Like, I don't know if c3 was good, but his plan with it was to play knight c2, so that he could just do that automatically. Now his plan is accomplished, and he has to do the next step. What's the next step of the plan? This is also where it starts to get a little concrete. Because one of the options that Joe could consider is... Well, I don't know. I mean, we can pull up the big board. There's a couple options for white here. So white is going to have to contest the center eventually now. We're no longer at a stage where white can sit. And... Okay, well, so I was going to say, so one option that's very double-edged, but you can consider, is to play the move f4. As I say that, it's on the board. So the other options don't matter anymore. I was going to say here, you have a few choices. Like, you can play b4, sort of. I mean, it's like a way to try to contest the centers. It's probably going to involve losing a pawn. That might be okay. I'm gonna say right now, a lot of the lines that I'm going to propose for white are going to lose a pawn for nothing. Just to free up the position. And then you will at least have some active pieces, even if you're down a pawn. The three options I would say for that, b4 probably ends up sacrificing a pawn. Either after something like c4 or a very direct line, for example, if we make a bunch of trades here, black attacks this pawn. This pawn is not defendable. We will lose it. But we do at least get a position. We have obstacle our bishops. We have counterplay on the king side. The extra pawn that black has is not immediately relevant. It's going to be much later in the game that becomes an issue. So we at least have some playability. Second option, what Joe played, f4. This is probably going to be at least a pawn sacrifice, maybe two. We'll get back to that in a second. The other option that I thought was interesting is knight to f3, what Chesspawn suggested, trying to attack this pawn. And now yes, if black goes something like bishop d6, now something like b4 becomes much more playable. Because if black does take this pawn, now we no longer have to take this pawn ourselves. We can instead take on d4, going the other way, and start to try to collapse black center. Something like b3 fails to take, so we're not immediately concerned about tactics. And if black does have to take, first of all, lose e5, maybe, probably not, I guess, with this pin, but if we just take this pawn, we're very, very happy with the situation. Material is still equal. We've freed up our pieces. We have control of the center ourselves somehow now. Probably we're still not better, but I don't think we should be much worse here either. So after knight c3, or knight f3, this is sacrificing this pawn. Now, or at some stage, black can take it. For example, after takes here. Taking on e5 looks really dangerous. Maybe we can get away with it. But even if we just have to play something like knight e3, yes, we sacrificed a pawn, but our pieces are a little less stupid than they were. So it's like, maybe it's a bit early to be slamming the emergency button, but I would maybe be slamming the emergency button. But anyway, all of this is moot now, because Joe has gone for a very aggressive break with f4, a very typical King's Indian idea. And white is trying to break down the center from the side. Now, f4 has been played. Black needs to figure out how to deal with this. There's a few options. One is we take this pawn immediately. If we take this pawn immediately, white probably doesn't want to take back. I'm guessing that's not his idea. If he takes back, then just after something simple like bishop d6, the rook probably has to move back. I cannot imagine that e5 is allowed. Black would just move this bishop out of the way, and then this pin would be a very, very big problem. So after bishop d6, the rook would just have to move back to, like, I don't know, f1 or something. And then maybe black even takes, maybe not. Something like takes bishop e5 looks like a really serious problem. These bishops are going to be very, very powerful now, and white is having immediate problems trying to hold all of his pawns. If something like bishop b2, now we have an issue with the pin, and b4 is playable. So white would need to find some other way of holding these pawns together, which I don't immediately see. Maybe there's some other way. So I don't think Joe is intending to take this pawn. I think Joe is considering some other move, like maybe c4. Trying to temporarily sacrifice this pawn, say, I'm going to get this pawn back later. But in the meantime, I'm going to close up the position and then try to go collect this pawn back at a moment where I've at least forced you to make the capture. This, I think, makes a lot of sense. I would very strongly consider it as white. The question is whether black can hold this pawn forever. If we manage to take this pawn back safely, we should be quite happy with the turn of events. But if black is allowed to just play something like takes and g5, opening up the king but keeping this pawn defended, then black is just winning. Don't know which it is. This is gonna require some like pretty precise calculation to figure out, because there's gonna be a lot of lines where white is sacrificing a lot of stuff, trying to get at this pawn structure. So both sides have their tactical work cut out for them. My instinct, I don't believe in it. I think it's really optimistic, but I think it's a really good practical try from Joe. I like the more I look at it, the more I like it from the perspective of objectively the position is very bad. I know the position is very bad if I'm Joe, and so I'm thinking like, what is the most confusing? This is definitely the most confusing. This is a good bluff. Can I verse you, Joe Bruin? Well, Joe Bruin is this guy that you see up here that's yapping at you. The mouth is moving. Yap, yap, yap. I am not Joe Bruin. I am some clown that he found on the street to provide some sort of gesture form entertainment while he does some actual work. Joe Brun is this guy. This guy over here, down there. And so he's a little occupied right now. I'm afraid you'll have to verse him either some other time, or you need to be this guy. This guy. And if you are this guy, and you're in Twitch chat, we're gonna have a talk. Okay, motion like is gonna make a move. The other really important thing here is black is down a lot of time. Black is down now half an hour. So if this position starts to get messy, the evaluation becomes irrelevant. Okay, he does take on f4, which is pretty obligatory. I don't really think... I don't think there's any other real option that black is seriously considering. I mean, he could have taken on c3, that's legal, but there was no reason to. If he wanted to take on c3, he could do it later. Actually, no, that's not true. That is not entirely true. Maybe it was better to take on c3, because then you don't allow c4. After f4, it might have been better to play takes, now takes here. Now white just kind of has to take back. There's nothing better. And then we get the same position, but in a much safer way. Because now we've allowed this kind of counterplay idea with c4. I think this is actually inaccurate from the opponent. I think we should be happy to see this. Now Joe, and you can see Joe senses something. Like he's locked in. Look at him. Have you ever seen somebody more locked in? He knows there's something. And he wouldn't look like this if he's just going to take the pawn back. He knows he has a chance here. Or he thinks he has a chance. He thinks there's some opportunity here. One big problem that I just realized is he might think his opportunity is b4, which would be a really bad move. And it is a very possible blunder that we could see. If white plays b4 here, trying to undermine the center even more, otherwise would be a natural looking move. But after takes, either way, white takes. If he takes with the pawn, for example, black has this tactical idea of taking with the bishop, deflecting this knight away from the defense of this square. And now after takes on b4, queen to d4 check, forks the king and the knight, but more importantly the rook. And then black wins a lot of material. So I'm hoping that b4 is not the idea. The good news that makes me think b4 is probably not the idea is even if black doesn't do that, the position kind of sucks. Like if black just plays rook c8 or something. So I don't think this is something you'd be excited to play as white. Though he might think knight f3 is fine here. I'm getting nervous now. Starting to think b4 might happen. And then we have a problem. 4-1 USA, nice. That's a pretty big score. I mean, +3 goal differential is significant. That kind of means they can't not make it out of the group, right? Unless they like really choke the other matches. That's pretty good. Or like they kind of have draw odds now, I guess. If they tie one more match, they're fine. Okay, so we're rooting for not b4. We're also rooting for not takes on... I don't even know what we're rooting for, but I would play c4 here. I think c4 is our best practical chance. Joe was focused on BCD files, but now he's looking at DE. Interesting. We have a body language expert. Which is good, because I am not a body language expert. I think he's considering it. I think the main question for him, like, he sees c4 as illegal. He sees it's, like, maybe good, maybe bad. The question for him that I think is going to decide whether he plays it or not is how bad he thinks the position is right now. So if he thinks the position is not that bad, he won't play c4. If he thinks the position is, like, a disaster, then he might play it. And the position might be closer to a disaster than fine, objectively. But it really looked like he sensed something. Like he had some idea in mind. He was literally leaning into, okay, maybe it wasn't that hard to read, but still better capabilities than mine. Yeah, it's a very critical moment, I think. This could very easily decide if the game is lost in like a few more moves. If Joe is not careful. It should also be said that it's not like taking on a 4 might be fine. I don't like it, but it might be fine. It probably is losing a pawn, but that might not be the end of the world. Like if we go back to rook f4, bishop d6, let's say rook f. What was I saying? I don't remember if I was saying rook f1 or rook f2. I don't know if there's a big. Let's just say rook f2. Takes bishop e5. So this is a position that I didn't like because we can't really defend this pawn. Bishop e2 is not possible because of b4, exploiting the pin. So this pawn is lost. We are going to lose a pawn. There's no getting around that. But if we do that in the best way that we can, and play d4, takes, rook b1, we sort of have a similar situation. I guess actually it's important that rook goes to f2 then, so that this isn't a check. It's kind of similar to before, where, yeah, we're down a pawn, but this is the extra pawn. It's going to be a while before that matters. We do have opposite color bishops, which gives us pretty good drawing chances. And it's actually a little bit better than before, because we actually do have some pressure against the king, which gives us some counterplay. Objectively, I think this is pretty hard to believe. I'd be very, very surprised if this is okay for white somehow. But it might be our best. It might be our best chance. The problem for Joe is it's really hard to evaluate this position in comparison to the position after c4, because you see both are possible. In this position, you see that you can go c4 and you're going to be down a pawn, or you can go rook f4 and you're going to be down a pawn. And this is like kind of the hardest thing in chess, I would say. Like when there's one good move, it's easy to find a good move in chess. Usually, I mean, obviously there's positions where it's very hard to find the one correct move, but most of the time, if there's one correct move, you will find it. But when there's multiple moves that are all good or all bad, and you have to distinguish between them, like how good and how bad, that's when it gets really hard, and we are definitely in a how bad situation right now. So it is like, it is a really, really hard moment for Joe. He's already invested 10 minutes into this move, which is very appropriate because this is a very critical moment. And I really wouldn't be surprised if he invests like 20 more. Because, I mean, even besides those moves, I mean, we've already talked about c4, we've talked about rook f4. There's other moves too. I mean, he has to consider even like e5, trying for counterplay. He has to consider like b4, I guess we talked about. He has to consider something like rook a6. Like, there's so many moves that need to be looked at. And they're all bad. And he knows they're all bad. But he has to figure out which one's the least bad. It's a very tall task ahead of him. I would guess by now he's probably narrowed it down to c4 and rook f4, though. I don't really see any other meaningful candidates. I think everything else is clearly like worse. The only other thing you might consider is takes to knight f3. You could consider this. This is not that stupid. But you have to be very confident to go for something like this, because there are a lot of tactics coming. I mean, first of all, black can take, allow you to take on d4, and then make a pin. So you have to be ready in this position to meet this with the move bishop to e3, which looks very strange. But it breaks the pin, and if black takes, we're now at least getting our piece back. This is probably fine for white. But you need to be prepared for that, and like many other ways to try to exploit the pin. Even like queen b6 here, maybe. There's also like weirder moves like knight d5 at some moment. I guess not now because this bishop's hanging. But there's a lot going on here that you have to be very confident in. And then also you have to worry, okay, what if black doesn't take? What if black plays bishop to c5? Have I made any progress? There's even like maybe threats of knight takes e4 now, tactically. If you take with the pawn, then there's going to be a very vicious discovered attack. If you take with the queen, then you're walking into another discovered attack. So this is very scary. But that is something you have to calculate as well. That might be another thing that you're just considering as an option. Could be a very serious one. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he goes for... I wouldn't be mad if he goes for that either. So I think those are the three choices that you're just deciding between. c4, c takes d4, or rook f4. Which one do we choose? Really, really difficult decision. This is not something I would expect like title players to get correct very often. Or, you know, much more often than 1 out of every 30 times. I don't know which one is correct, to be clear. If I had to guess, the engine's going to say c4 is our best try. But at the same time, what the engine says doesn't matter anymore. We know the position's bad. The engine's going to say the position's bad. It's now all psychology of what do we think the opponent's going to be most confused by. And that could apply to, like, any three of these. Joe looks like he wants to move. It's been 15 minutes, so, you know. This is a very significant amount of time to spend, but he has a lot of time, and this is a good time to spend it. What up, Spinal? Good to see you. Okay, thank you for sharing. That's good to know. I'm not quite certain what you want me to do with this information, but I'm happy that you feel comfortable enough to share it with the group. Joe does look like he's stressing a little. You probably assumed it would be Joe. That is also possible. He might not remember who I am. It's been too long. Alright, we have a move. Rook f4. Played. So we spent 15 minutes and then recaptured the pawn. I don't know if I want to ask, but what's a walking pad? I mean, in theory, a walking pad is like a mini treadmill you can put like under your desk, and you can walk on it while you're at your desk, and then you can pretend that being at your desk is like slightly healthier. I have such a thing. It works. I have used it, and I even use it sometimes. I'm hoping that's what spinal means, and not some euphemism. But more importantly, we have rook f4 on the board, and the opponent has not responded instantly, which frankly is a little surprising, and probably a good sign. Also, what is the time control? Do they get extra time at 40 or not? I'm gonna guess no. I think it's probably just 90-30. Yeah, it is just 90-30. So the time that they have here is the time they have for the game. They're not going to get extra time at some stage. And so our opponent has used half his time. It's move 17. The first, 10 moves were automatic, so he's kind of averaging 6 or 7 minutes a move. No particular reason for phrasing it that way. And so at this rate, he's going to be out of time in 6 to 7 minutes also. Or 6 to 7 moves. So that's good. Especially if he thinks a lot here, because this move should be automatic. I don't think you really have a move other than taking. I guess technically you can play bishop d6 first if you want. But it shouldn't really matter. Yeah, it does look like he's getting ready to make a move, and then he got confused. I don't know. I mean, is there really any reason to consider something other than bishop d6? Or takes? Seems odd. He's pump faking. That is what he's doing. He looks like he's not confident, which is good, because he should be confident in this position. How dare you issue sensitivity? I have no idea to what you're referring to, Spinal. I just said some numbers that were accurately calculated, and any resemblance to real-life events is purely coincidental. Okay, so, I mean, he's investing a lot of time, which means we should try to figure out what it is that he's thinking about. To me, bishop d6 is automatic, I think. The rook goes somewhere, we take, play bishop e5. Life is good. If we're black. For Joe, it's not so good. But for, if we put ourselves in the opponent's shoes, I would have played this very quickly. So the question then is, what else can we be considering that's not that? Because that objectively is winning a pawn on the spot. No alternative. You will be up a pawn. It's guaranteed. Any other move, it's not guaranteed that you're up a pawn. It's guaranteed you'll be better, probably, but it's not guaranteed that you're winning a pawn. And I love winning pawns. It's really awesome to have more pawns than the opponent does. So I actually really don't know what else you can consider. I mean, maybe you can consider knight d7 and just play the position slower. Say, I'm going to reroute my knight to a good square. Stop me. You can't do anything. And then I'm going to take, I'm going to play knight e5, I'm going to put pressure on this d3 pawn. You're going to lose it. And I'm still going to be up a pawn, but it's going to be a much more important pawn. We could consider that. Maybe that's what the opponent is thinking about. This is a pawn sacrifice, because we are giving away the d4 pawn. But most likely this can't be taken, I guess, because of a very specific tactical idea with knight e5. So then we just play bishop e3 and it's fine. I'm not sure. Oh, there's g5. And the rook's trapped. Ooh, that's pretty nasty. This rook is actually completely stranded. So we cannot take this pawn. This pawn is objectively poisoned. And if that pawn is poisoned, okay. You know, I spoke too harshly. I was unfamiliar with Drew Martin's game. He might be a genius if he's thinking about knight d7. The more I look at this, the more I think this might be just correct. Like, you might just be getting a pawn in a much cleaner way. He might be a beast. But he is thinking here. So that's good. I love when the opponent is thinking. No electrical pants. I do not want to play 10-second chess. Sorry. And the more the opponent thinks, the more, you know, the more he's running out of time. And the time is like, I would say the time is starting to get into the territory where you are thinking about it. It's not at the territory where I would say it's relevant, but it is in the territory where you are aware that you are burning time, and it's starting to concern you a little bit if you have the black side here. And conversely, if you're Joe, you are like starting to become aware, like, oh, my opponent is like in the tank every move. Like, I'm gonna get my opportunity, but the opportunity is gonna be later. So for now, I'm just gonna like play some moves, let my opponent get really low on time, and then they're gonna give me a chance. I just want to make sure I'm there when that chance happens. Frankly, I can't see tap using either. Come on, Cormac. Why we gotta do spinal like that? Alright, bishop d6 is on the board. So I take it back again. I think we probably should have played that a little bit faster, but we are going to most likely see this position where Joe is forced to sacrifice a pawn in the center of the board for little to no compensation, but we will at least have resolved this slight disaster of a position into a position that is only down one pawn. And as much as I said that I love having pawns, more pawns than my opponent, one pawn is one pawn. Doesn't necessarily matter all that much. You can survive being down one pawn. Sometimes. Maybe like half the time. I think like it is like an actual rule of thumb that if you are just down a clean pawn, it's probably like 50-50 if you're losing or not, objectively. That is literally what -1 means in Stockfish, I think. Okay, I don't like Rook F1. Rook F1 is not a good sign. Because now what we were looking at earlier is now not possible. Now after takes 6, bishop e5, d4 cannot be done. Because this rook is not blocking... after we sacrificed a pawn, if this rook was on f2, we'd be chilling. Because we can slide this rook over, play bishop e2, we at least have like something resembling a game. But now with the rook on f1, now it's check, and we lose a lot of stuff. So d4 is not going to be possible after this, which means we are still losing a pawn, but in a much worse way. Where after we lose this pawn on c3, we're also going to be saddled with these very, very weak pawns. We would have loved to liquidate this in the process, but unfortunately we're not going to be able to. And so the only way we're going to be able to defend this pawn, sort of, is knight b1. Which does not look like a real chess move, to say the least. Giving away this pawn instead, and saying, okay, like, hopefully this configuration is solid enough that I survive. But I think it's a little optimistic. So this is a big moment. I mean, Drew has the opportunity, I would say, to win the game now. I mean, he's still going to have work to do to convert it, but I would say, like, if Drew plays takes, and bishop e5, we are officially in an objectively losing position, most likely. I don't know for sure. Probably objectively losing. Yeah, that's exactly true, Legend. Like, in general, in chess, being down a pawn is not the problem. The fact that your opponent has the extra pawn is whatever. The problem is that the fact that they have the extra pawn means that they have, like, more stuff available to them. They have more squares, they have more space, they have more ability to liquidate pieces, and that's usually the problem more than the actual pawn itself is. In fact, you see very often the way to win positions where you're up a pawn is to sacrifice the extra pawn for some kind of activity or whatever, and mate your opponent or do something that way. And in this case, that's going to be. I mean, actually, in this case, the pawn itself is going to be pretty problematic because this a pawn is just going to run down the board. But also, more to the point, the fact that, for example, like this is black's extra pawn on c5, this is the one that's going to be extra, is a serious problem because it's allowing black to control this d4 square, it's allowing black to control this b4 square. We do see the exchange of pawns on c3, and we're reaching for the bishop, which is not a good sign. We're in some serious danger now, I think. We can hope that he's going to play bishop b8, bring the bishop back and try to checkmate for no reason. It could happen. That is a legal thing that could occur, I guess. If we ran this position 100 times, I think one person might do it. Or he could be a normal person and play bishop e5. Okay, so now we're in deep trouble. Yeah, bishop e5 played. Officially. And, I don't even see chances, honestly. I don't know, like, what you even try. I guess we have to play knight b1. No, I mean, maybe we play bishop b2 first, and then after b4, then we play knight b1. But it is not good. Okay, I guess you can try. One thing you can try. I mean, try is a strong term. But something you can at least consider is we can try bishop b2, allow b4. So now black is winning a pawn because of this pin. And then knight c4? I'm not sure about knight c4 and knight f3, but one of them. Let's say knight c4. Attacking the bishop, so we're at least, making black do something. And then after something like takes, we can pretend that this pawn is weak enough that we can get it later. We can't do it immediately with, like, if we could play queen e1 here, we'd kind of fine, but the queen is needed to defend this pawn. So we're kind of not fine. So we need to defend this pawn first, and then go collect this pawn. Which seems like we're asking a lot, but on the other hand, like, I don't know, maybe. This knight is a really good blockader. It's, like, pseudo-plausible that we live. At least for a while. The problem is there's a lot of other options for for black too. Like, we don't have to take with the bishop. We can take with the pawn, first of all. Looks like a very serious problem. This is completely doomed for white. This pawn, sure, will get lost, but so will this one. Black is going to be up, like, a lot of material. So the bishop has to go somewhere else. Let's say to a3, try to attack this pawn. But now if there's something like bishop d4, we can't afford to take, because now if black takes back with the pawn, this is black's extra pawn. What I was saying about how the extra pawn is not usually the problem, this extra pawn, this is a problem. This pawn it's going nowhere, it's going to be here forever. It is a very strong pawn. We are very, very sad that is the extra pawn. But if we move the king somewhere else, well, first of all, it's not even clear what the somewhere else is because we might like end up getting mated. But let's ignore that fact for our own sanity that we might just get checkmated. Well, okay, if our opponent plays that, maybe we have a chance. But even if that doesn't happen, what are we doing? We don't really have our own plan because we can never take here. These knights are actually not terribly placed, but they are frozen. This bishop is kind of frozen. We don't really have any active prospects of our own, and in the meantime, black is just kind of improving their position. And we're down a pawn. And this is the extra pawn, which is a problem. So maybe we have to go knight f3 then? Would be the other try, because now at least if the pawn takes here and then bishop d4, now maybe we can take and go after this pawn immediately before black has time to organize a defense of it. It could be something, maybe. But it's not, I mean, none of these are looking great. Like, the question, I guess, for Joe is, are we going to play bishop b2 or just give the c3 pawn where it is? Probably gotta play bishop b2. I can't imagine you can give the c3 pawn and have any hope. For some reason, Joe looks handsome with that haircut. Joe looks handsome with any haircut, man. Look at this man. Or, you know, the side view of this man next to the chessboard. This position is exciting. This position is exciting. That is true. Unfortunately, the excitement is mostly for the opponent. The opponent also looks relaxed, not gonna lie. I think he knows he's got a very, very good position, and Joe does not look happy. This is going to be a very, very difficult position. Who would I rather play for right now? Well, I think objectively black is winning. And I think it's also easy to, like, it's not a complicated winning either. I think black is just very clearly winning. So I think anybody would rather be black here. But it's not a foregone conclusion yet either. Black still needs to be... black does need to demonstrate, like, some precision, I think, to end this game. We're gonna be down a pawn. That's unquestionable. We're gonna have worse pieces as well. That's not even... It's not like we have compensation for the pawn. The way people like to phrase it is black has the extra pawn and the compensation for the extra pawn. All of the reasons that you would normally sacrifice a pawn, black also just has without the need to sacrifice a pawn. So white is in objectively very, very big trouble. But I wouldn't resign here as white. We're not at that point yet. For fans of the duo, Antonio is winning over on the next board, and he has a 20-minute time advantage. That's good. Hopefully, we'll put some points up on the board for the streamer crew. Hopefully Joe will contribute to that total. Though, it is going to take a lot. Joe's going to have to be very precise, and he's going to need help from the opponent. That help is starting a little bit, because the opponent has burned a lot of time here. Not strictly necessarily. So he is... There will be a point in this game still, I think, where black has to make some time pressure decisions. But to get to that point, Joe is still gonna Joe is gonna have to defend very well just to get to a point where his opponent has the opportunity to make a mistake. This is the point where you have to select between several disgusting moves and keep playing on faith that the opponent will want. Yeah, exactly. Like, It's almost not even like you're not making chess decisions at this point. You're just trying to like give yourself the mental resilience to play on, knowing that you will get your opportunity, but your opportunity is not here. You know full well you are not looking at this position and you're going to find a way out. It's not happening. But if there's a way out, it's going to be 10 moves from now. And so you need to figure out, how do I at least survive 10 moves to give myself a chance? And that is a tall task here. What, like that is easier said than done. So Joe is thinking like very deeply now, just how do I not resign in the next 5 moves? If I don't resign in the next 5 moves, I have a real shot at this. And you accept if your opponent plays perfectly from here, like, you lost. Oh well. That ship has sailed. But your opponent's not going to play perfectly from here. You're playing in 1900, the clocks are getting lower. It's an unusual, like, sort of, one of the nice things when you're in the losing side of the situation is chess is like, it's a very balanced game. It's hard to, like, it's hard to just like die. You always have defensive resources, and sort of by definition, any winning position is an unusual position. Like your opponent is not going to have seen something similar to the losing position that you're in. Because like to lose a game of chess, generally you have to do something wrong. Like it generally implies that you've come across a position that you're not familiar with, and you didn't react correctly. And so once you're in a losing position, those don't come around very often. So it's kind of guaranteed that you're both going to be in a position that's unfamiliar to them. And I don't mean like literally, like obviously we're 20 moves in, no position is going to be familiar to either player exactly, but even the type of position is not going to be familiar. So you know you're very likely going to get a chance. You put it all back to knight b5 in accuracy? I think probably... I don't like queen e2. I think entering this whole structure was a mistake. I think you just have to take on d5. I understand why Joe didn't, because you generally don't want to open the position when your opponent has 2 bishops. But the structure that you get by allowing black to close the position is not great. Like, you just don't have enough squares for your pieces. Yes, you've gotten rid of your like bad bishop, but it's still a bishop. Bishops are good pieces, and you're gonna have to open the position anyway with f4 eventually. So it's not like you're gonna manage to keep the position close forever. We will have to open it to some extent. So I definitely would have taken on d5 here, and not like it doesn't even open the position that much. We've only opened like 1/2 pair of files. And we start to put like a lot of pressure on this e5 pawn immediately. The knight can come in and attack it, the rook can come in and attack it, this pawn starts to become a target because the bishop can come in and attack it, this knight can come in and attack it. Like, this would be pretty comfortable for white, I think. I don't think white's better, but I wouldn't mind playing this with white, especially against like lower-ish rated opponent. But once we put queen e2, we are committed. Like, we can't turn back anymore after d4. And then, yeah, knight b5 looks very weird to me, but I think that's a product of I don't like any option here. Like, I would go to d1 and play f4, but that's also not great for white. I think probably black is better there too. And that's when you start to see like these sorts of inaccuracies, is when you're trying to decide between black is better in this line, black is better in this line. Which one is black more better in? I don't know. They both look like most of your training in chess is like focused on, is this good or is this bad? It's not how good is this, how bad is this? And then everything that followed from there, I don't think Joe really did anything wrong from there per se, but I don't think he really had much opportunity to do anything different. And now, I mean, sure, like there's probably some more precise way to play. Maybe f4 was not necessary. I'm not going to say this was inevitable, but it was a very, very difficult position from the get-go. So it's not surprising what he like. All of his moves were natural, and he's kind of unlucky that they just don't work at all. Stockfish agrees ED. Yeah, I do hesitate, like, because Stockfish, I think, generally does like the positions a lot for the side with the extra space after d4. You see this in, like, the King's Indian. Like, Stockfish generally really likes to play white, even in positions that human practice black scores very, very well. But I think this is so, like, you often see those types of positions and you say, okay, sure, the computer says it's minus 0.6, minus 0.7 even, like some big number. But in practice, I'm like happy to accept that. The one that we got, I don't know if I would be happy with white. I wouldn't be that mad if we played knight d1. I think it would be playable. But I would have preferred to avoid it entirely, personally. But okay, here we are. Bishop b2, b4, d4. I mean, we might have to do this. There might not just not be a choice, but we have bc, so we are losing a pawn. We can't take here now because once black takes back, this bishop has to move again, and then d3 is coming as a fork of the queen and the knight. So we have to trade bishops, which is not great. Probably rook b1, trying to take this pawn. And then bad things happen. I don't know, just knight d7, I guess. Takes, and then we are down a pawn. This knight is very powerful where it is, so this pawn becomes kind of weak as well. We can't even really play knight e3 because like queen d4 is the problem. Maybe this is our best try. This might be the best we can do, but it is really ugly. If anyone was wondering, Joe's 1887, his opponent is 2040. Oh, okay. So this is a FIDE rating then. This 1886. I thought they were basically the same rating, which I was surprised at because this is early in the tournament for that close of a match. But I mean that does change things then. Because that means we're playing like really far up, and that would explain some of the opening decisions. Like 170 points? That's a pretty substantial gap. Not massive, but substantial. Joe is like really in the blender on this one too. We're kind of losing the time advantage as well, which was the only sort of trump that we had in the position. Or the situation, I guess. So it is looking quite bad. I wonder if Joe just missed b4. Because it looks like, I mean, it definitely looks like he missed something. This is the face you make when, like, you miss some detail and you're annoyed. But I'm not sure what it was. It might have been just that b4. It could be as simple as just b4 is possible after bishop e2 because of the pin. And yeah, choosing between the least evil here it's really, really difficult. I don't think it's realistic, unfortunately. Or he might be annoyed that he didn't play rook f2, so that he could play d4, actually. That's probably what it is. It's a really bad feeling in chess when you're like confronted with the consequence of your immediate mistake. And you just have to sit there and like at this point I'm guessing Joe's not even like thinking about the position. He's just like, why didn't I play rook f2? Like, how stupid am I? I hate myself. Life sucks. And then you go for the spiral, and then you're like, okay, well, I gotta find a move, and then you realize you can't find a move, and you're like, why didn't I play Rook F2? I'm so stupid. Life sucks. And then you're like, I gotta find a move, and then you don't see a move, and then you're like, oh man, I spent 25 minutes on this move. I'm so stupid. Life sucks. And then your opponent blunders, and all is forgiven. That's the cycle that we're hoping for. He gives us a glance. I think he knows I said something mean. The death stare. Yeah, this is pretty brutal. I don't know what else we can look at, really. I think you have to go for bishop e2. But I just don't I don't see a realistic path to survival. It's really difficult to find, like, because it's not even a position where like you can see like a natural move for black that's a mistake and be like, okay, I am crossing everything I have, my fingers, my toes, my eyes, whatever, that they're gonna play this mistake. Because it doesn't really exist. Like whatever black does, they're gonna be basically winning or actually winning. Do you think streaming gives them extra pressure? For sure. 100%. I don't think I could do this, personally. Because then it's not even like then it's even worse. You're like, oh, I blundered, like I'm so stupid, and then you realize, oh, I'm gonna have to go back and like explain what I did. Then it's even sadder. And then you have like the actual practical just mechanics of getting the stream set up. Like you have to be at your game early because you need to get your stuff set up. So you lose time preparing. You don't get to prepare basically at all. You're stressing the whole time about like, is the camera still on? Did the stream break? Like I really hope like the stream didn't break. You have to go out and like find people to commentate. Like you have to bother like some jesters in over here to perform and juggle for the group. Like it's a lot of work. It's a lot of responsibility. I have a lot of respect for people who do it because they are giving up a lot. Like they are sacrificing a lot of EV in their own tournament for the sake of bringing some form of entertainment. It's a very self-sacrificial thing to do. And that makes me it makes me sad when I see people do that and then lose. Imagine going, yeah, exactly, Koma. Like, but I don't know. I mean, it also depends on your community. Like, there are communities that I would not want to be a part of if I was the face of it, losing a game. And then there are communities that I would be pretty happy because then I'm like, okay, at least I can go back and I can get some support. I can look forward to tomorrow. At least, you know, I got to put on a show for people I'm invested in. And I would say Joe's community is probably that side. There are definitely communities where I would say, like, oh man, like, I do not want to get on the camera today. But not this one. This one's good. Well done, everyone. Alright, so you have your Ruby. Enjoy lunch. When you come back, a miracle will have occurred. Calling it now. Do it possibly at second the exchange. You mean playing, like, taking the knight here? The problem is, I mean, generally speaking, in this position, I would be very happy to sack an exchange if we get something out of it. But if you mean directly, like, taking the knight here, the problem is we didn't solve any of the problems. We still have to deal with this pawn. If we were able to take the knight and it somehow, like, defended this pawn, I would be super down. We for sure would do that. And there are maybe some other ways you can consider sacrificing an exchange here, like Well, I don't know what. I mean, like, we could consider, for example, bishop a3. And say, okay, after takes, I'm going to take here, give this rook, and then try to play, like, d4. Actually doesn't look that bad. I might consider this. I guess. Well, no, actually, I kind of like this. Might be a real idea. I mean, I guess the problem is rook c8. We also didn't solve any problem permanently. I've been looking at c4. Yeah, so c4 also has like some similar issues where, yeah, we are sacrificing the exchange, we're getting off this monster bishop, but we have a lot of problems under dark squares we haven't resolved, and we have this pawn that is backward. And in this particular position, very specifically, we have the tactical issue that we have the same fork from before, once again, because we didn't, we moved the rook one square too far. So this fork is always available. But these are definitely the sorts of things that I think is going through Joe's head. Like, I would prefer to lose an exchange to lose a pawn in this sort of position, generally speaking. But it needs to be, like, getting us something. We have a move. I heard the sound. d4. Okay, this one I didn't really consider. What's the idea? So this is what we wanted to do if we had the rook on f2. If the rook was on f2, so that if the rook was over here, I also just realized I was on the wrong board when I was making moves. So the previous explanation was probably very confusing. If the rook was over here on f2, so that this diagonal is blocked up, then d4 would make a lot of sense. Here, I don't know what we're gonna do after black just takes. I guess knight f3. I'm actually a little surprised it was only minus 1.6. I thought it was gonna be worse than that. But that's the problem with being in a losing position. Like, it's not even the fact that you're losing. It's that you have to be precise in distinguishing between losing positions. Because to a human, like, minus 1.6, minus 2.6 are kind of the same thing. You just file them both under really bad and really bad. It's really hard to tell which is, like, more really bad. But this one is weird because I don't know what the idea even is after takes. I assume takes is automatic. The opponent's thinking, which is good, I guess, because I can't imagine you ever consider not taking. So he will take. We'll just hope that he takes a long time doing it. And then I guess the follow-up has to be knight f3, but I mean, we will be down like a handful of pawns. Opponent reaches out, looks concerned for a minute, but he does end up grabbing the pawn. Yeah, takes was played. Yeah, queen b5, I guess, is... I don't know. I kind of discarded it just because it looks so bad visually. But maybe you just got... I mean, you got to do what you got to do at this point. Like, maybe we just have to grab the pawn and hope for the best. So, I mean, that's probably what's going to happen. We probably are going to see queen takes b5. I guess just d takes c3. I mean, there are other moves. We don't need to do that, but probably this is the simplest. I guess we want to take this. I mean, maybe Joe wants to play knight c4. But I don't know. I guess he probably wants to take this and then argue that this is providing some kind of counterplay, this battery, and that he can control this pawn. But I don't know. I mean, first of all, this queen is vulnerable to discovered attack, which is a real problem. So black can take either pawn here. Black could take neither pawn here and just like white queen d3 or something. There's a lot of options here for black to convert like very cleanly. So this is very optimistic. But I mean, he has to try something. This is probably as good a try as any other. Yeah, well, if we take on d4, this is the problem, because the rook's on f1. When the rook was on f4, it was important to move it back to f2, because now that this is checked, this fork is pretty devastating. If the rook were here, it would be fine. I mean, not fine. White would still be much worse, but it would be a little more playable. But Joe is thinking again, which is really not a good sign. d4, like, you have to imagine that he was expecting black to take. But the fact that we're thinking again here is a little concerning. That means that whatever he calculated after d4, he's now realizing doesn't work, and he needs to call an audible. But there aren't really audibles available. You've kind of committed yourself. I think you pretty much just have to take, hold your nose, pray. Probably to multiple gods at this point. I don't think praying to one god is going to be sufficient. It's going to take 3 or 4. But there's always a chance. We're not quite in a position where black can do anything and win. We're just in a, like, the position has progressed to where black has one thing they can do to win, to a few things they can do to win. Now we're at the you are here line of black has many things they can do to win, but we're not yet at black can do anything and win. We're getting there, but not quite. So we're not dead in the water just yet. Oh, that's such a nice message, Stimulon. I know it's not referring to me, but I'm sure Joe will be very touched to hear that when he does read it. Yeah, congratulations on getting back. Welcome home. Alright, Queen b5 finally played. That's good. Or as good as we can hope for at this point. Joe is still fighting. He does not give up. We play on till the bitter end. I will say the opponent doesn't look 100% confident. Like, this is not quite the... This is not quite the expression of somebody who, like, is 100% sure they've got it in the bag. He knows he's winning. But I think I think he probably, like, calculates a couple lines and he's like, I don't know, it's, like, a little annoying. But at the same time, I think he knows that he can do a lot of different stuff and not spoil it. How have I been? I've been good. I'm enjoying the return to the camera. We are back. But I'm hoping that we see a turnaround here somehow, some way. I don't know what sequence of moves could possibly lead to one. but I know it exists. And more importantly, I know that Joe knows that it exists. Joe goes for the adjusting gambit. Throws off the opponent, scares him a little, made him think that he was about to make a second move in a row. He's good. He's good. He is doing quite well. You should talk to him. He's had some life updates. I'm sure he'll share. This guy looks stressed. I'm gonna say it. He does not look like he knows that this is over. It might be right. Might not be over. Have you ever seen someone try to make 2 moves in a row at a higher level? Not at like a super high level, but I do remember when I was younger there was an incident where one player made a move and forgot to hit their clock when their opponent wasn't at the board. And so the opponent comes back, and the person who made a move leaves the board, goes to the bathroom, and the opponent like starts thinking, because it from his perspective it's not his move, so because the guy hasn't his clock, so he's just like sitting there chilling. The guy comes back from the bathroom, sees that it's his move according to the clock, and makes a second move. And the other guy doesn't notice immediately because he didn't know that the first move was made. So from his perspective, the guy's just making a second move. And the game went on for like a bit before they realized what happened. And I don't actually remember what the resolution was. I guess this was probably a US tournament. I don't think this was a FIDE tournament, so they probably went back and fixed the just went back to the last position. But I actually don't know what you're supposed to do in a FIDE tournament if that happens. Might just wing it. Might just be whatever the arbiter decides. Okay, this guy is burning like some serious clock at this point. It's not nothing. I would like the thing is I don't really have moves to discuss because like anything black does, like there are no wrong decisions. Black can do nothing wrong here. There's no move that black can play that I'm gonna be like, yes, black played that move. Other than like Queen A5, but I don't think they're gonna play Queen A5. So whatever black plays, it's all the same. Like anything he plays, Joe's gonna be in big trouble. But if he takes 20 minutes to play it, Joe's gonna be in a little less trouble. So I'm just hoping for that. He's so fidgety. Yeah, I mean, I think both players are well aware that this is like quite beyond black is winning at this point. Black is like very, very winning. Like black can probably blunder a piece and still be winning. So like he knows that this is a very long shot, and he's probably annoyed with himself for letting it get to this point. But he also knows that his opponent hasn't put him away yet, and he probably should have. Like we should be the game by all rights should be done by now, or a foregone conclusion by now. And the fact that it's not means that Joe gets to be like, and when I say gets to, like there's a fine line in chess between gets to and has to. Joe gets to play on, or Joe has to play on, whichever a matter of perspective. Until his opponent like shows him something convincing, which hasn't happened just yet. So there's still a chance. There's still a chance. Is even Knight G4 good? I wouldn't say good, but it probably doesn't lose. I don't know if Black's still winning after Knight G4. He might be. But I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't play it, but honestly, like maybe Black's even still winning. Might be close. Final decision, Mortal Kombat. There have been games that I would be super down to decide by Mortal Kombat at the end. Dispense, like, get rid of the pretense and just get to the point already. Knight G4 +1. Okay, that makes more sense. Like, all right, so we're not quite in the territory where Black can give away a full piece for nothing and still be winning. That's good, I suppose. But yeah, we'll always have that. If Black gives away a piece, we're right back in the game. And like, okay, let's be honest. There's always a chance that Black does not know his bishop is under attack right now. It is possible. That one might not matter, because if it's White's move in this position, he might, like, taking the bishop might not even be that good. But there is a possibility that Black is like, oh yeah, he took on b5 because there was a pawn there, and just doesn't see that there's a threat. It's possible. Now you might ask, what possible move could Black play that lets White take the bishop? And to that I say, sir, you have made an excellent question. Can't help you with that one. But the first part, I can tell you, it is a possibility. Queen e7? Yeah, he could play Queen e7. Why you would ever play Queen e7, I don't know, because it also hangs the d4 pawn, in addition to hanging the bishop. But it is one legal move that he could play that hangs the bishop. Might actually be the only legal move he can play that hangs the bishop. There aren't going to be many. DC -3, bishop d7 -2.5, rook c8 -2, d3 -0.9. Okay, I mean, that is fewer winning moves than I would have guessed. I would have guessed there were quite a lot. But if there's only like 3 that are super convincing, I don't know. I mean, the fact that we haven't played taking on c3 yet is shocking. Like, this is a situation, I think, where, like, a player that, like, reaches out their hand to pick up the queen from e2 and take on b5, like, in the process of that happening, I think most people with Black would have already picked up the pawn on d4 before the queen comes down. So it's a very good sign that we have not only not instantly done that, but we are actually, like, really thinking about it. For 2 reasons. One, that means he's considering doing something else, and apparently everything else is much worse. And the time situation is, like, getting, like, what I said earlier, we're not quite into it's relevant, we're getting into it's notable territory, I guess. It is relevant now. 27 minutes is not, like, infinite time. And they don't get more time ever at move 40. The time you see is the time he has, plus 30-second increment a move. Which should be enough in this position, but I don't know. Like, if we take off another 10 minutes, then I would start to say, like, we have a glimmer at the end of the tunnel. Just on the other cam, Joe made a move. Yeah, we are on a 15-minute delay, so in real life, like, some things have happened. But, I mean, technically, technically we can jump 15 minutes in the future and see what happened, but we're going to not do that and respect the tournament rule. That's the same reason we're a little desynced between, like, the moves on the board appear very slightly earlier than the move on the camera, because we have the camera on a 15-minute delay also. But I guess the board is not, like, a literal 15-minute delay. It's, like, somewhere around that. So we could jump the board forward, I guess, like 10 seconds or so to try to catch up, but I don't feel like doing it. Oh, like you're allowed to have no broadcast delay if you're streaming it? Okay, news to me, but we'll keep it this way for today. Maybe tomorrow, if if they confirm that, then we can jump a little ahead. But it's better this way anyway because then it'll sync up with the board. Having the live board is the DGT board is nice. Yeah, I mean we're definitely expecting black to just take the pawn. I guess I should actually talk about chess because I've been avoiding going back to like the analysis board because we should see a move any minute. But looking at this guy's posture, this guy's not making a move for a bit. So let's hop in over here. The reason that I say that this position is like so far gone is first of all, we're gonna like black. Let's assume black takes because he's sane. First of all, white is down a pawn. Black has 5 pawns. White has 4. That is bad. I get supposed to use this board. White has 4 pawns. Black has 5. That's bad because 5 is more than 4, and we want to have more. Secondly, the position is now wide open. Like the whole center has blown up. Everything here is like gone, and black has 2 bishops, 2 very powerful bishops that are staring down the queen side. Not only are they staring down the queen side, they're also making a lot of threats on the king side. Like white's king is in serious danger of getting mated. And then finally, the extra pawn that we're talking about is this pawn. This is a very powerful pawn. So white only has 2 moves here, basically. The knight is attacked. Straight up. So white has 2 moves. We can either take the bishop and exchange it for the knight. Our bishop is attacked, we have to move the bishop. We now give away a second pawn. Black is up 2 pawns, 5-3. And the queen is attacked, so, you know, white doesn't have anything to do either. The queen is going to move somewhere. Even exchange, I mean, probably black shouldn't exchange, but even exchanging, you know, black is just going to be up 2 pawns for nothing. Absolute worst case. And there are almost certainly better moves here. The only thing black can't do is get greedy and take a 3rd pawn and blunder checkmate in 1. As long as he doesn't do that, black is like super chilling here. 2 pawns at this point, especially when one of them is this pawn that's so far advanced, it's very, very close to making a queen, is extremely fatal. So we probably can't do that. We probably can't take this bishop. This means that we have to move the knight somewhere. Okay, where do we move the knight? There's not a lot of options. We can go... I mean, we can go backwards technically, but then this whole configuration of pieces is stuck here forever, which is really, really bad. Even if there isn't something immediately winning, which there probably is. Which means basically we have to go here. I mean, we can consider knight c4 sort of, but this has all sorts of problems. Probably the main one, just bishop d4 is fine. There's other... bishop d7 is also a problem because the queen is starting to get a little bit trapped. We've cut off its escape route. It's not going to have very many good squares. So knight f3 is definitely the thing that like comes to mind. Bishop goes somewhere, probably c7 seems the most reasonable. And now white needs to find like a useful move to do, which there just aren't any of. Like we if we could go collect this pawn, like if we could play queen takes c3 here, I guess we'd still be losing because black would just take this pawn. But it would be a little bit better. But actually going to take this pawn requires a lot of moves. Like the only real way to try to do it is something like queen b4, trying to take this pawn and also defend this pawn. But in the process, black is going to collect like at least 2 or 3 pawns and enter a position where black is up at least 1 pawn. Maybe he gives away this pawn just for activity, but at least 1 pawn, probably 2, and also has super active pieces coming towards the king. So if black finds this is probably what black is evaluating right now. This isn't like... I guess it's not a question of like if black finds this. Black sees this position. He's not like totally stupid. He knows that he can do this. He's just trying to see if there's something like even more concrete before he commits to this. Looks like he did finally take the pawn, which is bad news for us. But on the other hand, he did spend 10 minutes doing it, so there is that at least. Now Joe needs to decide whether to exchange the bishop for the knight or keep pieces on the board. Both are bad. But he has to decide which is worse. Most likely, trading and allowing the pawn to get even further is quite a bit worse. So he probably has to play knight f3. I think that's the only practical move. I also think Joe needed to make a move by now. And that sounds harsh because it's only been 10 seconds, but you just can't be like this. Just cannot be the moment that you're thinking. You knew d takes c3 was coming. There was nothing else that you could like. I mean, at some point you have to start expecting something different because your opponent's taken so long. But you know that you knew this was the main move coming, so you need to have like something ready, even if it's not the best. Knight f3 on the board. Okay, good. A little bit slower than I would have liked, but only a little bit. So that's good. Opponent should move instantly here. This should not be a surprise. He reaches for the light square bishop. So he wants bishop d7. I don't really see what that accomplishes, so that's good for us. But now he's hesitating. He's not sure. He's ready again. He's not sure again. Okay, bishop d7 on the board. It probably doesn't spoil anything, but I would definitely not... I don't see why we would do this. The bishop is pretty good where it is. Back to the video, so we're going to see some stuff. The bishop was pretty good where it was. It was putting a lot of pressure on this pawn. So bishop b7 is something you would only really do if you see something like really concrete, I think. Oops, let's catch up. Okay, the bishop was good here. It was a good piece. So this is saying that there's something concrete. There might be something. I mean, maybe he's saying that the queen has no really good square. Because if we go too far back, then we allow this fork of the king and the pawn. That might be what he's playing for. And if we try to keep that square under control, then a lot of bad things probably happen. Just rook b8, continue chasing the queen, for example. Already looks pretty bad. Even just bishop c7 now, maybe even. But this is it's probably not the most precise sider. I'm not sure if I love it. It does do both those things. It defends the dark square bishop, which is good. It attacks the queen, which is irrelevant, kind of. But, like, I guess a way to sort of, like, explain why I don't really love it, even though it's probably fine. Like, to be clear, I think it's fine. It's probably still winning. But if white plays like some nothing move like queen e2, and let's ignore queen b6 for the moment. Let's just say that like black goes back to c7, and then white plays like some move, like I don't know, something that defends this pawn maybe. Like, well, I guess it really isn't. Let's just say bishop e3 and let's pretend that this pawn's not hanging. Like one of black's better moves in this position is probably just bishop back to e6, just trying to put pressure on this pawn. So yes, we have gained a move by forcing the queen to move, but we kind of lose it back later. If the bishop ever comes back, which is likely. Rook e1 works? Kind of. I mean, we'd have to sacrifice something, but we might be at that point by now. But in any case, bishop d7 is played. This move is going to be a surprise for Joe, because I don't think he would. I don't think he could reasonably have expected bishop d7, so he is going to think here, which is warranted. And now, now he has to decide where to put the queen. Once again, it's like, you know, bad option versus bad option. I think... Well, I don't know. I mean... White has like some real ideas now, though. I really don't like this bishop d7 move. Like if we go to analysis, bishop d7. Let's say queen d3, for example. Just coming back safely and putting pressure on this pawn. So White has a very concrete threat now. White wants to take this bishop to eliminate the defender of this pawn, which is, again, this is what Black's extra pawn. If we get this pawn, we're kind of chipping. Even if we trade this pawn for like this pawn, so that this becomes Black's extra pawn, that's a lot of progress. It might not be enough to like hold, but it's a lot of progress. So Black does need to do something about this threat. Like we are very concretely threatening to liquidate some stuff. What I have to imagine Black is going for, because it's the only reason that the only reason you would make this move is if you see like a concrete tactic. I have to imagine that Black is going to play queen b6, forking the king and the pawn, and then wants to go take the pawn. The problem with this idea is that after bishop e3, attacking the queen, so the queen is forced to take, knight takes e5, rook takes e5, White can start getting like some pretty serious counterplay by sacrificing the exchange, I think. I don't think it works, but this is like a real try. Like this is the first moment of the game in quite some time where I think something is happening on White's terms. And that doesn't mean that it's like good, but it's something. You know, we are progressing. Black probably has to take. I mean, maybe you can throw in bishop b5 and refute the whole concept, but then you have to worry about like bishop e5, you have to worry about rook takes a7, for example. And now there's like all sorts of back rank issues. Black cannot take this queen because White will deliver checkmate. Maybe this is what was missed. And like now all of a sudden, White is like very seriously back in the game. So Black has to take this rook pretty much. And now I want to play bishop h6. We're threatening to slide the queen over and start giving checkmate, basically. Like Black, I mean, Black can defend this, but this was not necessary to allow. I think White has like real chances here. Especially with low time for the opponent. I think this is the first moment in quite some time where I see a path. It's a narrow path, and it might end in a pit of despair still, but I see a path, and I will take that because that is something we haven't seen in a while. It's been at least like 5 or 10 moves before since we've seen something that like gives us a glimmer of hope. This is a real glimmer of hope. I will say that much. It's like a 20% glimmer of hope, you know, like there's a 20% chance that we have hope, but that's more than 0. And until it's 0, I'm keeping my glimmer of hope, or my fraction of a glimmer of hope. Right. All right, we have a move. Queen d3 on the board. We could see this line. It's possible. Everybody pause. We're not done yet. The grave is being dug, but it's only 3 feet deep. You'll have to do more than that. And by more than that, I mean not that much more, but more than what you've done. Opponent thinking after queen d3 too is also a really good sign. Because this like, you have to expect queen d3. That's by far the most natural move for White. Probably the only move that makes any sense for White, even. There's been like actually a couple moves now that Joe has made that I think are forced or automatic. Maybe not like strictly forced, but forced in all practical terms. And then the opponent suddenly takes like 5-10 minutes to think. And those have added up. This is a fast time control. This is 90-30. Okay, fast is too strong a term, but it's not slow. Like 5-10 minutes a move, that adds up very, very quickly when you're only talking about a 90-minute time bank. And, you know, with 18 minutes left, you can't afford to take 5 minutes to move anymore. You gotta start going. If you don't, like, some problems are going to occur. Like, if we imagine a situation like the line that we just looked at, where Joe, like, puts on the boxing glove and sacrifices the exchange. If the opponent has 18 minutes, they can probably figure it out. They'll win. If the opponent has like 4 minutes, anybody's game. White could win. It's like very important here for Black that he like speeds it up. Looks like he's ready to make a move. But once it, like, we see he makes a move, he comes back, he makes a move, he comes back. Like, these are really good signs. We want more of that. I understand why he's stressing, because like suddenly, like, he's kind of allowed this to go to a position where he's winning, but it's not by a concrete line. It's just he's broadly winning because this position's so good. He's had some chances to, like, more or less put away the game, but Bishop D7 has, like, given us a lifeline, a little bit of a lifeline, tiny bit. He still played very well, the opponent. Yeah, there are definitely worse time controls, but 90-30 is like. I mean, I think it's good that it's becoming the standard, but it is definitely like there are time like you have to pick up the pace, and people have gotten used to like much longer time controls where you just kind of have infinite time. Like the clock is not like really there. Okay, Queen B6 played. Step 2 of the line. We have a chance. Oh god, let this end with the Rook A7 back rank make stuff. That would be so nice. Like, such a fitting swindle if we end up with this full queen sacrifice back rank mate. If you were Black, would you really be worried about time? I'm already really worried about time. I mean, I'm not like that worried, I guess. I don't know. If I was playing Black here, I would be like, I wouldn't be scared of playing it on increment, in the sense that I'm not. I know I'm not going to lose, and I know that I'm going to get. I can, if I want to, I can always force like a position that's not guaranteed winning, but is guaranteed that I have good chances to win, and also doesn't require any thought. Like something like a Rook 3-1 against Rook and 3 is an end game that we might very well see, where White is maybe technically defending with best play, but in practice probably not. But that's me, and I don't. I know that sounds very arrogant, but like I think like me as like a 2400. If I was playing another 2400s, like somebody my rating, I'd be like reasonably comfortable. But if I was 2000, and when I was 2000, I would not be comfortable here. It's not like entirely linear, just off opponent rating. Like, I'm actually very scared. If I were in the opponent's shoes right now, I'd be like, actually, I'd be legitimately concerned about time, like a lot. Like, I would be feeling it. It would definitely be like a, dude, move, go, go, go. You gotta go. Just make a move. Yeah, like Bishop D7 also it wasn't a snap reaction. Like, he spent a long time thinking about that, which means two things. First of all, obviously good. He spent a lot of time and played like the bad move. Bad is probably a stretch. It's probably just like fine, but the slightly inferior move maybe. But more importantly, it means that the good move of Bishop C7, he didn't appreciate how strong it was, because he was looking for something concrete, or he didn't think that like the position just generally is broadly winning. And we're going to end up in a situation where he either needs to go for something very concrete that might very well not even objectively work, or he needs to calm down and play the just like broadly winning position. But he's already demonstrated that he's unwilling to play the broadly winning position. So it's quite likely that we're going to get into this very concrete mess. We're legitimately like, there are quite a few options. Bishop e3 is on the board. I guess a big problem is bishop b5 might win on the spot. If black has to take on b3, I think we have real chances. But this move might end it. And it looked like he was reaching for the bishop, so that's not good. I'm hoping he takes the pawn. But it does not look like he's going to do that. Now he looks stressed again. Now he's not sure. And we're back to thinking. Okay, let's go back to analysis. Those that end the board. Game on the spot. So let's say black plays bishop b5. We're responding to an attack on the queen with an attack on the queen of our own. White doesn't really have anywhere to move this queen. Well, is that even true? I guess we could move this queen, and it might be fine. But, maybe it's just fine. I was going to say it's probably not fine, but maybe it is. At queen d1, we renew the threat on the queen. The queen probably goes back to like b7 or something, puts pressure on this pawn, which we will lose. But we might manage to free our pieces a little bit. This is one option. Let's just call this option A for now. Option B that I was thinking is we can exchange the queens, then take here. Now, if black takes back the knight, there's still this fork in the position, and this is being attacked, but it's not really being attacked because of the pin. So we are allowed to move our rook, defend the knight, and try to indirectly start targeting this pawn. This might be vaguely holdable. So if we take this knight and black takes on f1, now we are down in exchange and we also have two pieces attacked. But if we play bishop d4, we defend both pieces, this bishop is still under attack. It has to go somewhere. Let's say b5. And then I have to figure out what I mean by and then. But yeah, I was gonna say maybe this is holdable, but it's probably not. Probably not. Anyway, we do have a move. Okay, bishop b5 is on the board. So now Joe does need to make a decision. Kind of unfortunate. I think if he took on b3, like, there would be quite good chances. Bishop b5 might be a problem. I don't know which is better. I think both end up, like, kind of losing exchange. So we are sacrificing material, or losing material, depending on how you look at it. I mean, one big problem is after, like, queen d1, which is the only square for the queen. Every other square is covered, so we literally have to go here if we move. Then after queen b7, the rook is still attacked, and if we move it somewhere, it can get trapped by the other bishop. These two bishops crisscross, and the rook has no squares. Power of the two bishops. So this is giving the exchange, or we can trade queens and also give the exchange. So either way, we're giving the exchange. Question is, do we want queens on or not? Usually I would say yes. We would want the queens on when we're losing, just for more shenaniganry. But in this case, I think I would probably actually trade them. Because the queens favor the attacking side, and black is very clearly the attacking side here. We don't have any counterplay of our own. The endgame is livable. You can pretend. But Joe has to decide now. The opponent has exactly 15 minutes on the clock. Joe is not that in much better shape. He only has 21 minutes as well. So it's pretty even. But if we get a time scramble, that is going to favor Joe a little bit. Mostly because if we don't get a time scramble, it's not going to favor Joe, so we'll take anything that you can get. Just any kind of clown show. Looks like in the background, the other game's finishing. So that's good. Oh, thank you, Downtown. I appreciate that. I do like doing these sorts of commentary. I do want to do more of it. There aren't many opportunities to because there are not many streamers that play over the board. But, you know, if you know over the board streamers, I'm usually available. My schedule is usually clear. Oh, the other game was a draw. Okay. Alright, so Queen D1, it looks like, is on the board. Yeah, we have Queen D1. Go back to the video. Opponent reached out for his queen, which is not a surprise because he literally has to move it. If he touches any other piece, then we're back in the game. But touching any other piece would be like special levels of psychotic here. So I don't think he will do that. I expect Queen B7 is the only move that really makes a lot of sense. Sliding his queen one square back, putting serious pressure on this pawn, and also trapping this rook. All very good things. But I mean, you could go further back, I guess. Like Queen B8 is also playable. All right, Queen B7 is on the board, which makes sense. Another move that like we did not need to spend a full minute on, but at this point it matters less. I think. I think it's fine for the opponent now to say, okay, like now the hard part's over. I'm just gonna like take my time and make sure I don't do anything like really silly, because I don't think he needs time anymore. Really. I think Joe might have to do something weird here, like Rook A5 or something. On the wrong board again. Of course I am. Maybe 7 on the board. I think Joe might have to consider like something ridiculous. Just go here, sacrifice this rook, try to exchange it for this bishop. And like hope that somehow this produces something of value. Because if he doesn't change the course, like the course of the game is very much headed in, he's about to resign. So he needs to do something like really really violent to try to introduce some kind of confusion. The other problem is like the rook is trapped, but even if the guy doesn't take the rook, he will take the pawn on e4, and that's almost as bad. It's not Jover. I hope not, but the light is rapidly leaving the tunnel. I'm trying to, like, I'm at the point now where I'm trying to find a way to blunder for black. And I'm not seeing it. Welcome back, Happy. How's the miracle going? We had a chance. We had a chance, I think. We crawled back to a point where, like, the opponent did have to find a precise move to maintain the winning position. But unfortunately, they did find the precise move. Sometimes that's how it goes. Like, when you're losing in chess, your job is not to not lose, because you can't. A losing position is a losing position. Your job is to make your opponent prove it one more time. We did that. We made the opponent prove it one more time. They did prove it. That happens. It's going to happen most of the time. But we earned ourselves back like a fifth of a point on paper. It didn't manifest today. Like, we're not going to get the point today. But if we do that 5 more times, we're gonna get 1 point. And that's why we fight on. Here, I don't think we're at 1 in 5 anymore. We might be at 1 in like 30. Not 0. But not much higher than 0 either. Yeah, this guy is strong. We found out that this guy is over 2,000 USDF, which is a very serious player. This 1800 rating is a FIDE rating, which is completely meaningless in the US. It's just like some random number. So I mean, he is a strong player. Not like an insurmountable match, but he's played very, very well this game. I don't like his time management, and I will be very blunt about that, but his actual play has been very, very good. Like we did just kind of run up against a very strong opponent today, it looks like. We're still fighting, there's always hope, but he's really made like no significant mistakes. He's made a few like minor inaccuracies, but nothing that should affect the outcome of the game. Yeah, so he's listed as 1886 here on chess.com, you can see. And Joe is 1887. It's not on chess.com for some reason. So I thought they were the same rating, but this is his FIDE rating, so his US rating is quite a lot higher. This is a recurring problem in US tournaments. There's very, very few FIDE rated tournaments that are open to lower levels, or even if they are open to lower levels, like lower levels don't participate. They generally play the lower sections. And so you often, like, players generally don't even get like a FIDE rating until they're quite strong in the US. And then even when they do, it's usually super out of date, especially for young players that are improving rapidly. So when you see that this player has like an 1880 FIDE rating, which is, fairly low for his strength, that probably means like he played a tournament like a year ago. And that was the only FIDE rated tournament he's played like this decade. Got his rating of 1880, and then like is only now like playing like I'm not even sure if this tournament is FIDE rated for this section, but this is like he's only now like back into a tournament where his FIDE rating would update. So we're playing an underrated, looks like relatively young guy. He played a fantastic game. Sometimes you just gotta tip the hat. But okay, doom and gloom aside, let's pretend for a moment, if you will, indulge me, that black is going to do something very silly. Let's find what it's going to be. There's always opportunity to do something silly. I mean, okay, doing something silly would have to start with taking on e4 instead of playing bishop g3. Like, this move probably ends the game. Like, maybe Joe won't resign, but he very justifiably could if he wanted to. So if we're gonna have a chance, it probably needs to involve him missing bishop to g3 and instead taking here with the knight, which is still very, very good for black, but maybe a little bit less winning. Because then this lets us at least get off this very, very powerful bishop. Exchange this, play something like queen d4. Try to go after this pawn. Or p7. I guess we could actually take this anyway. There is some tactic. Right, he's made a move. Yeah, this guy's a beast. I don't know how else to say it. Bishop g3 on the board. This guy might be A genius. Yeah, I think this one's the nail in the coffin. I don't know. I want to be optimistic, but I don't. I just don't see like I don't see a legal move for white that you can even play. E5, I guess, is our best try, probably. But we are just down a lot of material for no compensation now. And like black is promoting his pawn, and we're getting attacked. Like there's always a trick, but I cannot fathom what it would be here. Yeah, I mean, this game was a very good demonstration of why people put such a high priority on the two bishops. Like, look at these pieces, man. They have completely, like, you could take off, like, black's knight right now, it's still rather be black. The bishops are so strong. It's just so impossible to do anything when these bishops are controlling, like, every square on the board. Alright, well, I mean, we have to play e5. It just has to be done. It's the only move that makes, like, any sense. Was your wildest recent comeback, like, dead loss versus a GMRIM to win or draw? I think the most... This wasn't that recent. This was maybe, like, 5 or 6 years ago now. Which for me is actually relatively recent in terms of number of tournaments played. I only play a few tournaments a year. But I had a game against this Indian Grandmaster where he just completely outplayed me, like start to finish. I had the white pieces. I was getting completely dismantled. I was struggling on, but I mean, it was very clear that I was going to lose the game. I was down 2 pawns in like a heavy piece endgame for like basically no compensation. There was really nothing for my opponent to do but just push those 2 pawns and I would have to resign. So I had to go for some like ridiculous mating attack that obviously didn't work and just hope for the best. And fortunately for me, somehow my opponent blundered mate in 3 on the board. So like a somewhat unusual, not even like that unusual mating pattern, a little bit unusual, but like, you know, nothing crazy. And we weren't even in time pressure either. We both had like 30 minutes. So not only did I like survive that game, I actually won the game, which was very crazy. Which was very crazy. And unfortunately, I ended up spoiling the gift and didn't play well the rest of the tournament anyway. But that was the most notable. What was the name of GM? His name was Rahul Petty. I think he still plays occasionally. This guy had a good result in under 20s. Yeah, he seems strong. I mean, I guess he only has 1 point if he's playing Joe, so he must have lost the game earlier as well. Or he took 2 buys or something, I don't know. But this game he has played very, very well. Really hard to fault him on much. Yeah, Joe is thinking still, but I don't know. He's looking for a way out that just is not there. Yeah, we're not even up on time anymore. I think you have to play e5, give the exchange, try to find some miracle, some kind of miracle gung-ho attack. Like, we need to try something like e5, knight d5, just bishop d4, just give the rook. Take with the queen, try to play queen g3, try to play e6, try to make some pressure here. Probably at this stage, that's our best bet. don't see any, like... I don't see any alternative. But Joe is hunting. He's looking for anything he can find. I just do not see how you can do anything other than e5 here. Do we have a move? Bishop to d4. It's about to be played. Okay, so he's basically going after the... He's going after the c3 pawn, I guess. And so his hope is that after he gives away the exchange, I assume he's going to take with the queen. Something like rook e4. He wants to take here and put pressure on this diagonal. There's it's kind of a laundry list of issues with this, but that's the idea, I think. Problem is anything he plays is going to have a laundry list of issues, so you got to do something. I think the biggest, most obvious issue is if black just takes with the knight, not the rook. We're not getting any counterplay. We are just kind of down infinite material. Using the wrong board again. I'm a genius. Yeah, he's hoping for rook takes here. Try to take this, make some pressure on the diagonal. Even though it is not going to be much. But if he just takes with the knight, it looks like we're going to see this. So bishop d4 is on the board. Oh, was the guy reaching for the pawn? Is he not going to take the rook? I guess you don't have to. Want the video again. It looked like he was reaching out with his hand towards the e4 pawn. So I guess he's playing knight e4, which, to be fair, does also look like quite a dagger. Yeah, I might even do better. This guy is like... This has been quite a game from him. He might be the best to ever do it. He is hesitating, so, you know, there is the time management issue, but... Okay, knight e4 on the board. And yeah, the rook is still trapped. This rook still has nowhere to go. It's opened up only one square by moving the bishop away, but if we go for that, this fork is going to pick it up regardless. So we are still losing the rook, in addition to the very important central e-pawn. It is not looking good for getting counterplay. So I guess we have to go for like knight e3, knight f5. Probably our backup plan. Try to make something happen. The thing is, like, our opponent has played such a good game that you have to wonder why he's 2000. And there's going to be a reason. There's a reason that he's 2000. Like, I'm not saying that he's, like, necessarily just the second coming of Magnus Carlsen. Like, people are 2000 for a reason. One explanation is just he got his type of position. He played it very well. Other types of positions, maybe he doesn't play as well. Another explanation is he gets really good positions, and then in time pressure, he has some issues. We're getting to time pressure. Maybe there's some kind of legendary throw on the cards. It's all possible. But Joe doesn't need to, like, Joe also needs to be moving to make this happen. He's got to find something. Because at this point, it's not enough to get counterplay. You need to be ready to like take advantage if your opponent blunders as well. And when we're at the point where we only have like 4 or 5 minutes, probably, even if our opponent blunders something horrible, we might not even be like ready to take advantage, which would be kind of the worst case scenario. There are still some ways Black can blunder this. It is not entirely a foregone conclusion. But it does need to start with 93, I think. We need to get the knight to f5. Bring pieces to the opponent king. Hope for the best. Like, a really vague... I guess we can try to find ways to lose. If we try, for example, knight e3, takes on e1, queen takes, and we're going to have to be very fanciful here because, you know, obviously normal is we're going to lose. Let's say, for some reason, Black plays rook d8. I don't know. We get to play knight f5. And then for some reason, Black sees that he can make a discovered attack and goes knight d6. Attacking the queen and the knight. Looks like something that could be reasonable. Then maybe we get to play knight h6. Maybe. Might not even be that good. But maybe we get a glimmer of hope. And if Black takes, then we get to at least give check, and then force the king out into the open, and it probably still gets away, and Black wins very easily. But, you know, like, we gotta start somewhere. Knight takes e4, Joe has made a move. It is 93. Okay, step one. Step one. I've said step one a couple times, but this is step one. Sure. Second problem, Black doesn't need... not even the second problem. First problem, Black doesn't need to take the rook. So this whole plan is predicated on Black deciding to take the rook, which is not necessary. It's also predicated on him spending a lot of time to decide to take the rook. That part does seem possible. So we need Black to spend like 5 minutes and then take the rook. That's our best case scenario. Taking the rook's probably also correct, to be clear, but it at least gives us some practical chance, I think. If I were white, I would be more scared of even just like queen c7, for example, just threatening me in some amount. I mean, right now there's a knight guarding it, but just keeping the position stable. Maybe bishop f2 check is worth throwing in, just to move the king to a worse square. But at this point, I mean, it's kind of a test of nerves, honestly. I mean, they're both under 10 minutes. They're well aware of the situation. Black is winning. But he still has something to prove. And he's in the tank. He doesn't see 1000% clear move after 93. That's good. That is the stuff we need. He looks at the clock, he's looking a little stressed. This is the feedback loop you can get yourself into, where you're like, oh shit, I'm low on time, I need to move. But the fact that you stress yourself out, knowing that you need to move, prevents you from making a move, because now you know you're stressed. You're like, oh, I'm like spiraling. I can't make a move while I'm spiraling. I'm going to make a bad move. And then you're like, oh no, I'm going to make a bad move. That means I'm running out of time. I have to make a move. And then the cycle can continue. It happens. Yeah, that is the hope equals. Like, at some point, like everybody shows their strength at some point. It could be in a completely different position, unfortunately. Like maybe he'll show his strength next round, but it's possible. It could always happen in this game still. Like this could be why he's not like. To be clear, when I say like show your strength, like he's playing very well. He's a very good player, and 2000 is a very good rating. But he does like at some point he's going to show why he's quote unquote only 2000 and not 2300, right? Because based on this game, if he plays like this every game, he's probably be 2300. Maybe be higher than 2300. So the only two explanations are he doesn't play like this every game, and we ran into the unlucky time that he did, or he does play like this every game, then gets to 5 minutes and does something very silly. But he's made a move. Bishop f2 is on the board. I don't think it really changes anything. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I don't think it matters. King to h1 on the board. This is good from Joe. I'm happy that Joe played this move quickly. He had to play it. So, good job, Joe. Our opponent might be trying to mate us. Maybe this is the idea. Our opponent might be trying to go knight g3, king h2, queen to c7. And now if we try to attack this queen, because there's a discovered attack coming, if we go for knight d5, now there's a very nice checkmate for the opponent. Gives a double check. King has to move because there's two checks. If there were just one check we could take, but there's two, so we gotta move back. And now black gets the coveted Smutter's mate. And honestly, it might be an issue. that might do it. But king h1 on the board. Black is thinking again. I think what's happening is he wants knight g3 to work. Like, as a chess player, you want that to work. Any chess player wants that to work. Nobody sits at the board, sees that that's possible, and doesn't want to force it to work. But his problem that he's having is after knight g3, king h2, queen c7, bishop e5, or knight e5, he's struggling to find like the 100% hammer. He's not 100% sure that it's made. And if he's not 100% sure it's made, he's not allowed to go for it. So he has to be 100% sure. He does go knight g3, so he's going to go for this. The problem is I do think it is made. So I think he's right. It would be nice if he was wrong, but I think he's right. We might see it on the board. I think he might play queen c7 and Joe just gives up and lets him play it out. Queen c7 played. At your level, how much higher elo do you feel you have little to no chance? It's a pretty high gap. Like, I think I would beat like a 1600, 100% of the time. Anything higher than that, I think you get some chances. Like, I've had bad positions against 1700s. I win, but like I've had bad positions. Like, I could see myself giving up a draw to 1700 if I played 100 times. Once you start getting to like 1900, 2000, like it's not even unusual to give a draw, but that happens probably like once every 5 or 6 games. Is knight g4 a try? Well, knight g4 doesn't stop the mate. Does it? It's the same problem, right? Knight g4, knight f1, still queen h2, and then whichever knight you take with, there's knight g3 mate. So we need to find a way to like control this square, but we can't really do that. I guess like I mean you have to put something on e5, but black would just take it. That said, I'm gonna say, like, Joe is not here, so maybe he found some way to keep the game going. Like, I think, I mean, he has to try probably knight e5, rook takes e5, queen f3, fork the rook and the bishop, and, like, pretend that that does something. Just scare him a little bit. The problem is, like, he can't take either of these because he's gonna lose the queen to a discover check, but he can pretend that he's going to, and maybe the guy will get scared. Like, he needs to play knight e5 and hope his opponent doesn't take on e5 because the guy's scared of queen f3. That's our out at this point. It's a very narrow out. The only other thing you can try is just play knight d5 and hope that they don't see the checkmate. That one I think is much lower odds because everybody's gonna find that. I mean, you just... It's too pretty. People don't miss pretty stuff. People miss boring stuff. Yeah, it doesn't even delay it. That's true. it's actually the same. So knight g4 is not worse than, like, most moves. There's probably, like, 30 legal moves in here, and, like, 28 of them get mated into. Or 30. Can't even play h4, that doesn't delay it. Yeah, I mean, it's just... We did our best, but this guy has played a very, very great game. I mean, you just gotta acknowledge that some days your opponent shows up and you witness something special. Joe giving it one last hurrah. Trying to find the one way out. Secret puzzle. I think just waiting for it to be over. I mean, it's like, you might as well spend the time. You don't get to take it with you to the next game. But I think he knows, like, I'm sure he knows that this is not recoverable. He's just hoping... Like, the thing that you can hope for is, like I was saying, like, Black would go for this if they think it's made. That doesn't mean they're right. And this is the type of error that you can very easily fall for as Black. Where if there was some defense here, like, I don't think there is, but if there was some defense, that is the sort of thing that you could easily overlook because you want this to work. Like, your heart wants to be able to play this, like, kind of queen sacrifice smothered mate. And sometimes you're willing to trust your heart more than you're willing to trust your brain. Problem. His heart and his brain are both saying the same thing, and they're both correct. So like, you just can't stop mate here. We have to try knight e5, we have to try queen f3, and then if they play any move, you resign. Like, that's basically it. That is the end of the game. Oh, what up, Joe? I think we might have an inkling what's coming then. I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that Joe played knight to d5 here. Okay. Oh, okay, bishop e5. We fight on. Joe is not going down without one last hurrah. He refuses. Knight e5 was much smarter. If it makes you feel better, I don't think it mattered. But it might have given a little more opportunity. It might have scared him a little bit. Like I was saying, I don't know if you were here for this, but I was saying the only win condition we have is play knight e5 and hope they don't take, because maybe they're scared that if they take, then there's a fork. But unfortunately, the guy did figure out that he can take. And now, like, the other problem is, like, if we could play, like, knight d5, for example, we could introduce some kind of confusion. Maybe. just because there's a lot of stuff going on, but black can actually just take that, and then if we take back, we have exactly the same problem that we had for like every move of the game. So there really just is. There really just isn't a trick. We can't even like take on a7 and like hope for some back rank issue because this, besides the many things defending the back rank issue, it wouldn't even be made. What do they do after queen f3? Just like anything, because you can't actually take the bishop. You lose the queen. I mean, technically you don't get mated, so it's like slightly better. But even any move here, like they can play. What can they play? I don't know, like, well, this for sure, but maybe even like bishop c6 is playable. I don't know, something like the game would technically continue, but I think we would not be introducing any doubt. But we'll watch out the end. It might as well because it's probably going to be maximum one move, and it might be 0 moves. The move might be the hand out. That is the possibility. And then Joe, if you're open to it, we would love to get you in here. But I understand if you are exhausted and have other things to do. Magic could witness me forget how to middle game. You happy to call? Okay, perfect. Let's look at the end of this because it's probably any second now, and then we'll pop in. What did he play? Oh, he played Rook A7. Okay. Joe fights on. He will not go down. This does delay the game one more move. There is no checkmate. This guy is probably wondering if he's hanging back rank mate. He is not. But this is the spirit we need. We take every final opportunity we have. And he's thinking. Like, our opponent is still thinking, even in this position. The opponent is still thinking. Which is more precise? Queen takes? Rook takes? I know it's got to be one of them. But at this point, it makes sense. You just make absolute sure. You just make absolute sure. Because you can't take the time with you. You might as well, even if it looks a little ridiculous. Or a knight f1. Yeah, honestly, knight f1's probably fine here too, but there's no reason for it. Rook takes a7. There is no back rank idea, unfortunately. Well, okay, it's kind of a back rank idea. But, yeah, unfortunately, the square is guarded. Maybe it might have been better than c7, technically. They're probably the same. Joe's trying to make it work. I respect that Joe is, like... Because it is close. It is close. There is, like, a real... I mean, okay, it's, like, close in the sense that we might survive a couple more moves. We'd still lose, but... the fight would technically continue if we could take here and there was a back rank mate issue. And this is what you got to do when you're in a losing position. Like, you take your chance, you acknowledge that most of the time it's not going to work, and 10% of the time something's going to happen. 90% of the time it's not, and this sadly is the 90%. So Joe does, unfortunately, fall to the strongest 2000 on the planet. But it was a good fight. It was a good fight. Alright, let's get Joe in here to tell us how good a fight it was. How are we going to do this? Let me try this. Oh, you flagged here. Okay, we didn't even... To the very end, we refused to throw in the towel. But, The clock had other ideas. Hello, hello. Sorry about the result. Let me get you on the actual screen here before I ask you to yap. I'm a pro producer. We threw this together in embarrassingly low time. All right. Well, hello, everybody. This is our hero of the moment. Despite the results, still our hero. Everybody give it up.
Oh my goodness, you're too
Joe
kind.
is with us. So, take us through it. A bit of a rough one.
Yeah, the opening I thought was fine until I played knight d2, like just moving the knight backwards and then allowing him to push, like I guess d5. So that was my first misstep, and then I played queen e2 when I probably should have played queen e1. So then the knight could have gone to e2, but also um like I could have played queen e2 if I hadn't played knight d2. That probably would have been fine.
Mm.
But yeah, I just like didn't know what to do. And then I was like, okay, my knight's gonna go on this crazy like detour to like b5, a3, and then I have to play c3 to put the knight on c2. And then I thought like if I could just get in like b4, then I would have something. But that never happened. and
Yeah.
then yeah, things started really falling apart. Yeah. Even after like f4, I thought I had maybe some chances to like have a miracle comeback. Um, but like it felt like just nothing worked.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I like the way you were fighting. I agree the opening was kind of a disaster, but you were fighting pretty well to get back into it. There were a few points where I thought, okay, I can see a pattern.
yeah, no, but I mean, my opponent I thought played really well. Like after he played bishop e5,
Mhm.
I like honestly wasn't even considering that. I was like, okay, my pawn's hanging. Like I was kind of happy he undoubled my pawns because then I was like, okay, now my bishop can finally move. Uh, but then I realized I can't really fianchetto because he has b4, and I was like, okay, that's
Right.
pretty annoying. And then I was like, okay, I could maybe play knight back to b1, but then I lose the b pawn. And then I was like, okay, maybe I can like push d4. I was like also I remember I was playing really quickly because I was like I might as well try to get into some time pressure because my position was so bad, and I was up like I don't know 20 minutes when he played bishop e5, and then I like I didn't see that after I pushed d4 it opens up the queen. Like if he takes on d4, which he did, I didn't see like queen takes b5 hits the bishop with tempo for like it was like 20 minutes.
Really?
And then I finally saw that and I was like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting. Like maybe I should go for I don't know if this is good or like the best line or not. But I was like, I was calculating everything was like bishop b2 in my head. And then I was thinking like b4, then d4, then like takes on c3, and then I take on e5. Like it was like just a mess.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's a lot of
and I was
takes,
also
takes,
looking at
takes, takes.
like knight f3 ideas, but I'm like, that's just dumb. I don't know. So yeah, then I was like, oh, I have this like queen takes b5 sort of intermezzo idea, and then I just went for it, and I didn't even see they had like bishop d7. Which I don't know. I thought it was at least somewhat interesting. I thought I could like try to get the pawn back. Uh but yeah, nothing worked out, it seemed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
mean,
thought
I
they
really
played it
like
pretty
this
well.
idea. I thought it was a really good practical try at least. I actually have no idea if it was objectively best or not. I didn't have engine, but I thought practically speaking, it made a lot of sense. Like I was finding like some ways for black to fuck up. Not
Yeah.
many, but some.
Yeah, this I thought was my best chance at least. Um but yeah, after bishop d7, I wasn't sure where to put the queen, and then honestly, this queen check, I completely overlooked queen or bishop b5
Right.
immediately. I thought they would save their queen first and then try to play. Like I thought they'd maybe take my pawn, but no, bishop b5 immediately was really nice. And then I was calculating like maybe I should just trade queens. And then
Mhm.
when I didn't trade queens, I like regretted leaving the queens on, honestly. So after bishop b5, I was like, okay, if I take their queen, they take my queen, my rook's hanging, my knight's hanging, my bishop's hanging. But then I was like, oh, maybe I could just play rook c1 because my bishop's not really hanging
Mhm.
because then their bishop's hanging, right?
Right.
So I thought rook c1 here would be a try, but then I was like, I'm just losing my e pawn.
Right.
I don't know. It's all losing,
Oh,
I'm
it's an
sure.
interesting try. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so I was
mean,
like, okay, might as well not just lose a pawn. Like I'll just save the like try to keep the material on and see if I can come back later. And it never worked out. So,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, he
um,
converted really well from what it looked like. I kept thinking there was going to be odd moments where you get like probably not like back into the game, but like back into the game a little bit, and it just never came.
yeah,
He shut you
I
out.
think 92 was just dumb. I blame it all on 92. After 92 d5, I think it was all just a downhill from there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really like the idea. Like this rerouting it's a really nice idea, but I think we probably have to go like bishop g5 first, maybe. Um, Try to act against this or something like that. Because I agree that like objectively, this is probably not like so bad if you take, or like maybe even the position after queen e1 isn't so bad, but it's unpleasant. I think.
Yeah, yeah, I regret not playing queen e1. Um, yeah, I should have brought the bishop out first or just moved the queen. But like, I was really like intrigued by this f4 idea. But I'm like, I can't play f4 if my knight's in the way.
Mhm.
And the problem with the knight on d2 though is it blocks the bishop too. So that was really
Right.
sad. Um, but
Yeah.
anyways, thanks for commentating. I hope it was at least somewhat enjoyable.
Yeah, of course. No, I love commentating. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, and we'll have you back, I believe, at some point.
That is true. Tomorrow night, I believe. Or
Ah,
whatever tomorrow, whatever the second game tomorrow is. I don't know if
in
that's
two
what the page is.
rounds.
In
That's
two
right.
rounds, yes. I'll be
So the
back.
next round tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Pacific, we have Houseline, Matt commentating, and then you'll be back. But it'll be 3 hours earlier tomorrow.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I figured like you'll watch this back at some point just to and like fire me before the next round, so I won't need to worry about when it
No,
is.
don't worry. Your job security is pretty high considering oh my goodness, we're getting rated by
That's
Chess
what I love to
Dojo.
hear.
Shout
Oh,
out to
hello,
Chess
Chess
Dojo.
Dojo. Thank you for the raid.
You know it's
Perfect
late when the
timing.
official broadcast is rating me.
Ah, is
We
this supposed
rated
to
Chess
then?
Dojo earlier, so now we have to find someone else to raid. But that's okay.
Oh no.
Are you
It's a
gonna keep
race.
streaming, or I'm assuming you're going to bed?
No, I'm going to bed, man. It is.
Yeah,
It's
no,
late
I know
here.
it's really late, so I'm sorry.
No,
But thank you.
not that way. This was fun, but I'm definitely going to bed. Who we got streaming
Yeah.
right now?
Okay. I'm gonna raid Cash Carbon.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah,
My
thanks, Eagle.
stream
Yeah,
kind of
I
co-ops,
didn't even
so
look at
it'll be
his
some
rating
streams.
to be honest. But yeah, I definitely could have played better because I just my nights were terrible. But he played really well, so major credit to him. And yeah, I'll try to do better tomorrow. So we got 2 games tomorrow. Matt at 10 a.m. Pacific. That's 1 p.m. Eastern. And I hope to see you all back then. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Everyone,
Stick around for the raid. We're raiding Cat Carbon. All right, and yeah, thanks, Alex. Everyone, go check out Sack Sack Checkmate. We'll give a shout out to Sack Sack.
it's me. That's me.
All right, I'll see you later tomorrow, Alex. Thanks again.
All right, get some rest.
Have a good night.
See you tomorrow. Have a good night.
Bye.
All right, thank you guys all for being here. See you in Cash Carbon stream, and I will see you guys tomorrow for round 5. Be here for round 4 though. See you then.